Chapter 101. Taking a step into the dungeon, I felt the world around me twist. It first started with my eyesight. Everything became black. Then it was my hearing. My sense of touch followed soon after. Thereafter all my remaining senses disappeared. I felt nothing. It felt as if I was an insignificant speck of dust drifting in a lonely space. I soon after lost my sense of time. What may have been seconds felt like an eternity. Finally, after an unknown period of time, hearing the faint sound of my breathing, I knew that my senses were returning. Because I had been through this situation before, back in the black market dungeon, I was somewhat able to adjust to the shift in sensations. Unlike last time, I did not puke this time. Opening my eyelids, I found myself inside of a damp and dark environment. Instantly, a heavy scent of granite invaded my nostrils. Soon after, a cold gush of air brushed against my skin. Glancing around, I found many students grimacing and holding onto their stomachs, trying their best to not puke. Blarg, blarg, blarg. Well, there was always bound to be a few people who could not hold out. With dungeons being off-limit to people who did not have hero licenses, apart from a few, most of the students present had never been inside of a dungeon. Their reaction was understandable. Arriving and standing before us, a second-year student with a green lock uniform warmly smiled towards us. The student had short curly black hair that gently fell towards the side of his face, and his deep black eyes that seemed to carry a hint of warmth perfectly complemented his hair. He did not look particularly outstanding, but he seemed to be an amiable person, instantly giving people a good impression of him. As he spoke, his deep yet pleasant voice traveled through each of the students' ears, calming them down. All right, fellow students, I will give you 5 minutes to recover before I start the next briefing. As soon as his words entered the students' ears, most of them managed to regain their bearing. Surprised by this development, staring at the students, who seemed to have suddenly magically recovered from their nausea, I fell into deep thought. Glancing at the air around me, I soon came to a realization. The thickness of the mana around us increased. I see. The second-year student must have embedded mana into his voice, creating a calming effect. Interesting. The second year before me successfully caught my attention. To be able to affect someone's mood with just a few words. Scary. This was especially so if they were against you. With just a few words, they could influence your state of mind. Imagine being in a battle, and you suddenly found yourself losing the ability to think properly because of how angry you were. This can result in the opponent potentially making more mistakes, just like what had happened with Alex back in Galzacus. Glancing at him with interest, I could not help but think of recruiting him into my mercenary group. Though he never appeared in the novel, I could not help but be fascinated by his power. His power was definitely interesting. A pawn, or an important piece? I will have to observe more. Okay, now that everyone is better, I will keep this short. My name is Benjamin Hoare, and as you can see from my uniform, I am a second-year student. I will briefly explain to you a couple of important things that you will need to know to ensure your safety as you start the examination, so please bear with me for a minute. Pointing towards his left where a set of grey combat suits were laid on the floor, Benjamin said. On my left over here are a bunch of clothes that you will need to wear when crossing the dungeon. They are equipped with a tracking device as well as a defense mechanism that is able to withstand blows coming from E-ranked monsters at least once. This way we can preserve your life in case a dangerous situation arises. Pausing and glancing at the students to make sure they understood what he had said, Benjamin smiled. After I finish briefing you on a couple of more things, you will be given a couple of seconds in order to change into those combat clothes. Please make sure you wear them as they are crucial in keeping you safe. And like that, Benjamin briefed us on a couple more things. To be honest, after hearing the first part, I pretty much stopped listening. It was just the usual safety precaution rules that I was briefed on back in the dungeon of the black market. Nothing particularly important. After talking for a couple more minutes, smiling, Benjamin glanced at all of the students and concluded. All right, that is pretty much everything for now. Please change into your combat suits and wait for me at the starting line of the dungeon. Nodding my head, I took a grey suit and quickly changed into it. Obviously, there were two piles, one for men and one for women. As I put on the suit, I could not help but be reminded of the suit I was made to wear back in the virtual reality class. Though it was not as tight, it was not any better as I felt my body become stiff. At the front of the suit, several black pads made out of special shock-absorbing materials were attached to the chest and abdomen areas of the suit, as well as the knees and elbows, and other important areas of the body. They were specifically put in those areas to cover the more vulnerable parts of the body. As I moved around with the suit on, though it was uncomfortable at first, I quickly got used to it. Arriving at the starting line of the dungeon, I did a few stretches to warm my muscles up. Bump. Ha. As I was stretching, feeling someone bump into me, I turned around. Soon I saw Arnold's figure standing a few meters from where I was standing. Glancing at me with utter disdain, he slowly uttered, "You better watch out inside of the dungeon. Since there are no cameras, you never know what might happen." Okay. Smiling politely, I nodded my head and moved a few meters back. He still has not given up, huh? That is fine by me. I have already thought things through before. Along with the many other stares, I had noticed his stare back at the ranking evaluation. Compared to the other stares, his was the only one that contained obvious malicious intentions in it. I think Jin had not told him about what had happened back in Hallberg. Maybe because it slipped his mind, or because he thought my rank was higher, Jin still had not told Arnold about me. This was good. Thinking back, I think the rest of the guys, just like Jin, probably thought I was going to be ranked higher. I guess in the end they still thought I was hiding my strength, as faking a rank with the orb was not that hard. There were certain artifacts in circulation that could limit someone's mana flow, making it so their rank was lower. However, doing so would take a long time, and it was extremely painful, hence why most people refrained from doing so. Honestly, I am glad Jin did not say anything. I still had a grudge against Arnold for what he did to me back when I had just arrived in the virtual world. Though his parents' background was greater than mine, now that Jin was out of the picture, I did not have to worry about him targeting my family. Even if he did, yeah. Now that I had gotten a better understanding of this world, I knew of many ways to destroy him. I did not have to fight him head on. I could just manipulate what was around him in a way that his life would turn into hell. Pausing my thoughts there, lightly glancing at him from the side, I smiled inwardly. You should be the one that should watch your back. All right, it seems like everyone is here. Standing by the side of the cave, Benjamin glanced at the students, who were waiting behind the starting point of the cave. The way the students were huddled up together reminded him of marathons. At the front were the more confident students, and at the back were the less confident ones. Pausing, and after seeing that everyone was ready, raising his hands, Benjamin slowly said, "On your marks, get set, go." Beep. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Like a chain reaction, all of the students started sprinting forwards. Despite there being no light ahead of them, the students fearlessly ran through the cave-like environment, completely forgetting that this was not a race, and that this was a dungeon. Watching the students run with all their might, I shook my head. Naive. Running ahead of the others in the beginning was probably the worst decision someone could make, especially since this was an unfamiliar environment, with no knowledge of what laid ahead of them. Kahak, kahak, kahak. And right on cue, a few meters ahead of me, where most of the students were, yellow eyes appeared everywhere. Stopping and glancing towards the mass of eyes in the distance, I could not help but mutter, "The midterm exams have finally begun." Chapter 102. Koala, Quaka, Quaka. Like a tsunami, green creatures of shorter than human stature, with flat and long-hooked noses, bat-like ears, and malevolent expressions with twisted smiles, appeared from every corner of the cave. What is that? Are those goblins? Hi. Surprised by the unexpected development, the students at the front immediately stopped running and huddled up together. With their backs against each other, they each raised their weapons and nervously looked towards their surroundings. Goblins appeared en masse everywhere they looked. What do we do? I do not know. Despite goblins being the most common monsters inside of dungeons, they were still dangerous creatures. With their excellent sense of smell, hearing, and tendency to hunt in groups, many aspiring heroes fell because of them. Less needed to be said about students who had no experience of being inside of dungeons. We are surrounded. Staring at the numerous goblins blocking their paths, one of the students could not help but say as his voice shook, "Something is definitely wrong. How can there possibly be so many goblins inside of an F-ranked dungeon? We are all going to die." He was not the only one who thought of it that way, as almost everyone at the front shook in fear. I mean, although it was dark, the number of goblins before them counted to at least 1,000. How were they supposed to fight with that many goblins? Move aside, you bunch of wimpy primates. Indifferently walking ahead of the students, Melissa's figure appeared holding on to a long metal spear with flame engraving at the tip of the spear. Without giving a chance for the students to figure out what was going on, leaning backward, Melissa adjusted her position and proceeded to throw the spear in her hand. Swoosh. Like a bolt of lightning, the spear traveled through the sea of goblins, leaving behind a red trail of flames. Kaka. Boom. Soon after, an explosion reverberated across the whole dungeon. The cave shook, and debris and dust flew everywhere. As the debris cleared up, the students could not help but be stunned by what they saw. What? Ha! The sea of goblins that was before them was no longer visible, and what replaced it was a single goblin wearing a mage mantle with an orb in its hand. Well, that is how it was supposed to look. Currently, its body was lifelessly sitting on the hard ground with a spear imbued on top of its head. Is that a goblin mage? What? So it was all an illusion? Regaining their bearing somewhat, everyone stared at the body of the goblin that was currently lifelessly laying on the ground. They soon understood what had happened. Everything was the work of a goblin mage, a more evolved and rarer version of a regular goblin. The goblin mage had created an illusion to scare the students into thinking that they were currently facing a horde of goblins. It was a fairly common strategy they used to hunt down their prey. It was also not that hard to spot if one paid close attention. All they had to do was look for the reflection that the orb the goblin mage made. As soon as you spotted the orb, you could instantly find where the goblin mage was and thereafter kill it. We had learned this in class, but it was evident that most students had forgotten this beforehand. Perhaps it was due to their excitement or their nervousness, but it seems like everything that the students had learned in class was completely forgotten. Walking ahead of everyone, with the most gentle smile Melissa could muster, looking back at the students at the front, she said, "Next time you are scared, do not block the paths for others. You are honestly a nuisance, so please either die or move out of the way. Thank you very much." With that, without looking back, Melissa picked up her spear and dashed deeper into the cave. Standing at the back, looking at Melissa's disappearing figure, I nodded my head repeatedly. "Ah, that is Melissa for you." Yup, yup, yup. Spitting venomous words with the most gentle face possible, only Melissa could pull it off. Though I do have to say, despite the fact that Melissa was only F-ranked, her power was no joke. Even I would have trouble defending against that throw. I would say 2 to 3 rings would do the trick. Let us go. Follow her. Watching Melissa leave, some of the students woke up from their daze and immediately followed from behind her. Glancing at some of the students that followed Melissa's footsteps, taking a deep breath, I too started moving. Time waited for no one. Since timing was one of the criteria used to assess the performance of the students, I could not waste any more time lazing about. Channeling the mana inside of my body, I activated drifting steps. Thereafter, as I moved forwards, with each step I took, the wind scenes beneath my feet would intensify. Shortly after I activated drifting steps, I found myself freely running across the dungeon as my speed increased by small increments with each step I took. Whoosh. What was that? Ha! Like a streak of light, I quickly and swiftly surpassed some of the students who were running ahead. Though I was still far from the first-placed people, I was confident that I would soon catch up to them. Clank, clank, clank. As I moved forward, the loud sound of students fighting against goblins appeared everywhere. Moving my body slightly, I managed to somewhat dodge the battles, but I knew that avoiding fights was not an option. And I was right. A couple of goblins soon appeared before me, obstructing my path. Because I was moving so fast, I did not have enough time to stop. Hence, briefly glancing towards my surroundings to make sure no one was looking, I lightly tapped on the sheath of my katana. Click, thud, thud. Soon after, 2 green heads rolled on the ground. It all happened so fast that even if cameras were present, they would not have been able to pick up what had happened. Instantaneous. Right after the heads of the goblins hit the ground, 10 meters ahead of where the goblins were, I managed to finally stop my body from moving. Jogging back towards where the goblins were, I quickly grabbed the heads of the goblins and tapped twice on the right area of my chest. Soon after, the heads disappeared from my hands. And as soon as the heads of the goblins disappeared from my hands, a large 2 appeared on the right side of my arm where a black band was located. Checking my band, nodding slightly, rather than activating drifting steps, I jogged forwards. The roads of the cave had become narrower, moreover, the ground was not flat, making it hard for me to gather enough momentum without doing anything unnecessary. Like that, for the next 30 minutes, I either passed students, or hunted down goblins, or the other monsters that tried to ambush me as I moved forwards. This is a good pace. As I jogged, the right side of my arm had a large 55 engraved on it. Though it was a lot, it was still far from the likes of Kevin and the rest. I mean, if I did not remember incorrectly, Kevin came back with a score of 215 back in the novel. Therefore, 55 should still be within the scope of my abilities, and thus prevent me from getting more attention. But is 55 not already good? No, it was not. 79. That was my current goal. I had estimated that this target would be the best in order for me to achieve the top 100. That was with me taking into consideration that my written exam score would be below average. Though hard, it was not impossible, especially since I could freely use the keiki style as no one was watching, well when I was sure there was no one around. Pretty much the areas where the second and third years were not present. After a bit more hunting, I soon arrived at a fork road that separated into 3 different directions. Without even thinking about it hard, I quickly moved towards the right area. All right, let us go. Just as I was turning towards the right path, I heard a deep voice coming from the left side of my ears. Glancing towards where the voice came from, I soon noticed a tall individual with a buzz cut and thick glare. It was evident that he had purposely waited for me. There you are. Ah, how are you doing, Arnold? Without responding to me, with his arms crossed, Arnold moved towards the middle of the cave, obstructing my path. I have been waiting for you. Chapter 103. I've been waiting for you. Arnold walked slowly in my direction with a smirk. I should have taken care of you shortly after what happened in the virtual world. Because of everything that occurred in Hallberg and other events in my life, I completely forgot about an insect like you. But worry not, now that I have remembered. I am going to make sure you suffer. A loud crack echoed. Arnold looked at me with disdain. Let's start by making you fail the exam. Watching Arnold approach, I raised my hands and backed off. I smiled wryly. Arnold, let's talk things out. Let's not get physical, shall we? Yes, we will talk. But not with our mouths. An explosive boom echoed. Arnold tensed his calves and propelled his body forward. Like a bullet, he quickly appeared before me. Noticing his actions as he arrived, I cursed out loud. Oh come on, man. Why must people always resort to violence? Die. As Arnold arrived a few meters away, I saw his huge fist heading toward my face. I let out a sigh. Moving my head to the side, the fist flew past me. Ha! Before Arnold could react, I clenched my fist and concentrated my mana. I threw a punch toward his right upper abdomen. A loud bang echoed. A shockwave swept through the surroundings. Wah. Before Arnold could react, my fist connected with his liver. He found himself kneeling on the ground. He let out a sharp cough. Saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth as Arnold tried to stand up. It was a futile effort. His legs refused to budge. As he tried to move, a jolt of electricity seemed to course through his body, from his liver down to his leg, and up to his brain stem. Within half a second of impact, Arnold was paralyzed on the ground. He was in complete agony, unable to breathe, stand, or think clearly. No matter how much he tried to stand, he could not. It's pointless. I concentrated everything I had toward your liver area. Staring at Arnold squirming on the ground, I walked up to him. If you had paid attention in class, you would know the liver is one of the largest organs. When faced with a stimulus, it releases toxins and a large amount of blood, resulting in your body shutting down as a means of self-preservation. I squatted down at his eye level and grabbed him by the hair. So regardless of how much you want to stand up, your body won't allow it. Arnold stared at me with wide eyes, regaining some clarity. He muttered in disbelief. Yo you ho how? He had been caught off guard, but he specialized in defense. It should have been impossible for him to be hurt this badly by a simple punch. Unless his opponent had higher stats than him, this was impossible. Recalling that his target was only a G-ranked student 2 months prior, he refused to believe my stats were higher. It was impossible. Moreover, the blow came too fast and too precisely. It was almost as if I had been waiting for that moment since the very beginning. He slowly came to a realization. Yo you've been waiting for this moment since the very beginning. I smiled but did not reply. His analysis was correct. I had been expecting his attack from the very beginning. With Arnold being an important character in the latter half of the novel, I had thoroughly analyzed his fighting style. I noticed his habit of always starting a fight with a right hook. With him thinking I was weak, it was easy to exploit that opening. I hit him straight in the liver with the fastest and strongest attack I could muster. It was just a simple analysis. What are you trying to say? I leaned my head forward, pretending not to understand. Ellie let go of my head. Glaring at me, Arnold tried to stand up with both hands on the ground. I was not going to let him stand pulling his hair. I smashed his face into the ground. A loud bang echoed. He let out a sharp cry of pain. Nope, stay down. You need to rest a little more. I'll kill you. His nose was dripping with blood, and he lunged toward me. It was almost like he wanted to bite me. Wow. His action caught me off guard. Moving my head backward, I slapped him by reflex. A loud slap resounded across the empty space. Staring at my hand that had turned red, I raised my voice at Arnold. My God, what is wrong with you, Arnold? There's no need to resort to biting. Are you a monkey? I'll kill you. I slapped him once again. A red mark appeared on his face. Arnold, I'm just trying to calm you down. Please don't take it to heart. I slapped him again. As a rule-abiding student, it is my duty to help fellow students who are in trouble. Ignoring the fact that Arnold's cheeks were progressively swelling, I continuously slapped him. For the next minute, loud slapping sounds reverberated across the area. I saw tears streaming down his cheeks, probably due to the pain. I did not care, as he needed to be taught a lesson. I was no longer the passive person I once was. Although I still loved to avoid standing out, I would not stand by and get abused like before. If my opponent was someone I couldn't pick a fight with, I would endure, but otherwise, good luck. After another round of slaps, I laughed lightly and stopped. Arnold's cheeks were a dark shade of blue, and his eyes were hidden beneath the swelling. I let go of his hair and stood up. I patted my body and spoke jokingly. Anyways, since you specialize in defense, these slaps shouldn't hurt, right? Just take it as me caressing your cheeks gently. I'll, KKK. Arnold tried to speak, but because of his swollen cheeks, barely any sound came out. I ignored him and glanced around, sighing in relief. Fortunately, no one witnessed what had happened. It was likely because the stronger students were already ahead. Of course, I made sure not to overdo it while educating Arnold. Although the second and third years were present, they did not know what was going on. They were only there to monitor or rescue students in danger. If Arnold showed signs of severe danger, his suit would light up, and the proctors would move. Thus, I had to be careful not to severely injure him. What's going on here? A crisp, pleasant voice entered my ears, causing me to freeze. Ha! Melissa emerged from the middle road. Her eyes landed on Arnold's sorry state. I coughed lightly, my mouth twitching. Would you believe me if I said he tripped? No. Arnold tried to speak, but I immediately placed my foot on his face to stop him. Shut up, I'm talking over here. Melissa looked at the scene, speechless. It did not take a high IQ to understand what had happened. An awkward silence prevailed. After a short pause, Melissa shook her head and proceeded toward the left side of the fork. Forget I even asked. I have no interest in your kinks, so move aside as I cannot be bothered to watch your circus act any longer. Pushing me away, Melissa walked toward the left path. I smiled and waved at her. Bye, have a safe trip. She clicked her tongue in annoyance and disappeared into the distance. Watching her enter the left road, I laughed inwardly. That road was a dead end. All right. I stomped my foot on Arnold's face to knock him unconscious. A few seconds later, I heard the sound of goblins coming from the middle path. I quickly hid myself and Arnold beneath a boulder. I patiently waited for the goblins to arrive. I counted 5 goblins passing by my direction. A smile appeared on my face. Hap. Jumping out from behind the boulder, I appeared before the goblins. Catching them off guard, I precisely hit every goblin in the middle of their brows. These were their weak spots. Under my fast punches, the goblins died instantly. It was not even a fight. Done. I dragged their bodies toward where Arnold was and stacked them on top of him. All right, this should be perfect. Clapping my hands in satisfaction, I stared at Arnold buried beneath a pile of goblins. I made sure not to use my sword when killing the goblins, so it looked like Arnold had fought them. Something isn't right. I frowned as I looked at the scene, deep in thought. It felt as if something was missing. I hit my fist against my palm, realizing the problem. I arrived before the goblins and battered their bodies. I wanted to make it look like they had fought with Arnold. I almost neglected the obvious. After a minute of battering, I touched my chin and nodded multiple times. Flawless. Yes, it definitely looks like he fought against multiple goblins at once and unfortunately lost after battling with his life on the line. Since he wanted to fail me, I might as well reciprocate his intentions, right? I forcefully kicked him in the ribs. The sound of his ribs breaking resounded across the space. Soon, his suit turned red, and beeping sounds erupted from it. By now, satisfied, I immediately ran toward the right path. Checking my watch, I smiled. Still on track. Chapter 104. She clicked her tongue. Another dead end. Melissa glared at the cave wall that was blocking her way. She turned around and walked back toward the entrance of the fork, ignoring the goblin corpses littering the path. This way, I am sure this is the correct path. Quick, before the others catch up. Along the way, Melissa spotted other students running down the path. She did not bother to glance at them or speak. Since this was a competition, she had no reason to tell them the road was a dead end. Moreover, her walking back made it painfully obvious. The students seemed to have completely brushed this fact off. It was not her fault they were dumb. Melissa sighed and sped up her pace. The faster the time, the better the score. As Melissa ran, she wished to get this over with. In reality, she did not care about her exam. Her specialty lay in theory, meaning she had no interest in fighting. If not for her parents begging her to enroll at the lock, she never would have come here. Damn this. If she had not chosen the wrong path twice, Melissa estimated she would have been in first place by a long shot. She had wasted a lot of time. Though she did not care about the exam, she did not want to botch it. Even with her focus on theory, she wanted a good score. For a perfectionist like her, anything below the top 5 was a failure. Fortunately, the dungeon was long, and she could still reach first place. The fact that she wasted time irked her. Without pause, she ran back to the entrance at full speed. A series of loud, continuous beeping sounds echoed from the other side. Melissa reached the cave entrance, slowing her steps as she spotted 3 third-year students squatting down to treat a student. She squinted. The student in question surprised her. Was that Arnold? She recognized him instantly. He was Jin's lackey, and whenever Jin was present, Arnold was too. She had seen Arnold several times in the past, even though Jin had stopped sticking around her as much. He annoyed her, especially since all he did was lick Jin's ass. Why was he passed out on the ground? As far as she remembered, Arnold was a fairly strong individual. He had about the same strength as her. Before the trial, she had estimated that apart from him, no one else would pose a threat to her. How in the world was he in such a state? She recalled something, and was slightly startled. She remembered her encounter with Ren before she entered the left path. Although she did not know who Ren was beating up at the time due to the victim's battered face, she now had a feeling it was Arnold. At the time, she thought Ren was beating up a weaker student, who had picked a fight with him. She thought the dispute was over an insignificant matter, like a goblin corpse. Such disputes happened often, as every goblin head counted for an extra point. She did not stick around and went on her way. The last thing she expected was for that student to be Arnold. Ren did not strike her as a particularly strong individual. However, it seemed she was wrong. He was capable of beating the likes of Arnold. Arnold was a fairly muscular and tall male. Even though she did not get a clear look earlier, looking at Arnold on the ground, she felt his body frame matched the person Ren was beating. This surprised her. She was surprised to see Ren in the F-rank section, but she had not put much thought into it. She had given him potions, and with their aid, entering the F-rank was not impossible. But seeing Arnold battered on the floor, his combat strength could not be underestimated. To be able to one-sidedly beat Arnold was hard. Very hard. Even if you ambushed him, his robust frame and defenses made such an accomplishment difficult. Melissa frowned as she watched the third years apply ointment to Arnold's face. The more she learned about Ren, the more she felt he was strange. From the incident in Professor Romhaus's class to the theory he gave her, to his ability to easily bully Arnold, Ren Dover had shown her many surprises. The frown on Melissa's face did not lessen as she glanced at the third years carrying Arnold's body away. Ren Dover was definitely hiding something. 3 streaks of light split the air, accompanied by a sharp whistle. Green blood splashed everywhere, as 3 goblins fell lifelessly to the ground. Thanks. Emma put her short swords away and thanked Amanda, who was a few meters behind her. Both were E-rank, so they had teamed up. Since they were friends, they did not worry about backstabbing. Emma glanced toward the deeper end of the dungeon and asked Amanda, "Is Jin up ahead?" Amanda nodded. "He is with Troy." Emma placed a hand on her chin, frowning. "Troy? If I remember correctly, he is the guy with yellow pupils who is always with Arnold, right?" "Yes." Emma's frown deepened. "Honestly, that guy creeps me out. Whenever I see him standing behind Jin, I always get this double-faced feeling." She turned to Amanda. "Is it just me who feels that way?" Amanda shook her head. No. She felt a similar way whenever she saw Troy. He was dangerous. Although Jin seemed oblivious, Amanda noticed little things. She had seen Troy behaving weirdly, especially around Jin. He would have a polite smile when with Jin, but on rare occasions, his face turned extremely serious. He looked as if he had no emotions. If someone did not pay attention, they would miss it. But Amanda had caught him doing it 3 times already. She knew something was wrong, but she did not pry. Considering Jin's behavior, it was not strange for Troy to hate him. With Emma pointing it out, his shows of hatred were becoming blatant. Amanda felt something big was about to happen to Jin. This was only a gut feeling, and she could not confirm it. Ugh, enough talk about Troy. Do you know what the others are up to? Emma snapped Amanda out of her thoughts as she cut the heads off the goblins and put them into her dimensional space. She handed some to Amanda. "I know Melissa is in the F-level dungeon, so she should be fine. Kevin is also by himself in the D section." She paused and frowned. God, just what kind of monster is he? She had known since Hallberg that Kevin reached D rank. Recalling this, she was reminded of how ridiculous he was. D rank at 16? That was almost unheard of. Even Jin, who was extremely talented and full of resources, was only E rank. Just imagine what a monster Kevin was to reach that level without the same resources as Jin. Emma eventually said out loud, "I'm sure that at the moment, no one in our first years can beat him." Amanda nodded. However, a second later, she recalled something. She hesitated and looked at Emma. "What about him?" Emma tilted her head in confusion. Who are you referring to when you say him?" "I mean Ri." "Ah." Before Amanda could finish, Emma realized whom she meant. She quickly raised her hand to block Amanda's mouth. Emma clenched her teeth. "Don't ever mention that guy's name to me again." Amanda was taken aback. She could not speak with Emma blocking her mouth, and did not know what to do. What did he do to piss Emma off so badly? Emma stomped her feet in anger. "Just thinking about him pisses me off to no end. How I wish I could beat him to a pulp. Do you know what he did to me? He bass." Emma vented her frustrations for the next minute. Amanda could only helplessly stare at Emma as she ranted about the train ride. And so that's what happened. Finally, Emma took her hands off Amanda and turned to dive deeper into the dungeon. "Let's go. I suddenly don't feel like talking anymore." She glanced at Amanda and urged her to follow. Any talk of Ren would send her into a rage. Recalling the train ride back, Emma felt her blood boiling. Just who did he think he was to ignore her like that? The disrespect. Ren Dover was a name she would not forget for a while. Chapter 105. Achoo, achoo, achoo. Yo, what is up with me today? Is it really true that I am immune to the flu? I have been sneezing too many times lately. It is not even funny anymore. In the end, I let it go as I had more pressing issues to take care of. Wiping my nose, I headed deeper into the dungeon. As I headed deeper into the dungeon, I refrained from running. Honestly, I was pretty much walking. Currently, the armband on my arm had a large 79 displayed on it. After killing a few more goblins, I pretty much hit my goal. Since I have accomplished what I had set my mind to from the very beginning, the rest was not a priority. I did not need to get a good time as I have already secured a high score for this examination. Funnily enough, I think that even though I was walking, I was currently one of the fastest students. I mean, on multiple occasions I have seen students pass me, but after a short bit, I would eventually surpass them, as they would always be held back by goblins. This happened so many times that I estimated that I was pretty much one of the fastest people present. Perhaps walking was the most efficient method. I mean, just let the students who were in a rush handle all of the goblins in your stead. At this point, rather than this being an exam, it was just me having a leisurely stroll. Clank, clank, he help. As I was walking, I soon saw a student in distress. Squinting my eyes, I soon spotted him fighting multiple goblins at once. 2 regular goblins and a goblin knight? Getting a better look at his situation, I soon spotted him being surrounded by 2 regular goblins and a goblin that was wearing knight armor. A goblin knight, yeah. The further I went into the dungeon, the more variations of goblins I spotted. I saw a goblin mage on multiple occasions, a goblin knight, and a goblin fighter. Just why did there have to be so many types of goblins? Okay, this was my fault on my end as I was too lazy to come up with different monsters, but still, past me. Could you not have been a little bit more original? Sigh. In the end, I could only sigh at how unoriginal I was at times. To have considered this novel a masterpiece. I do not know what I was on at that time. Either way, looking at the student who was desperately looking at me, I raised my hands and innocently said, "Do don't look at me, just having a leisurely stroll here." I mean, his intentions were obvious. Use me as cannon fodder for him to get rid of the goblins or transfer them to me. This way he could reap all of the benefits whilst I struggle to deal with the goblins. Like the professor said, never trust someone inside of dungeons. I have learned this lesson the hard way. What? Help, I am in danger here. How can you let a fellow student fail? AF after this we can work together. Nodding my head seriously, I solemnly looked at the student before me and reassured him. You are going to be fine. The school will not let you die, so just hold on tight, okay? You know what, I will do you one better. Once I get out, I will share your struggles with one of the professors. Maybe he will help you then, okay? Clank, clank, wait, no help. Like that, I waved at the student and left. No matter how much he screamed, I just ignored him. Honestly, his plan would have worked if I had a hero complex, but I did not. Moreover, it really did not take a genius to figure out his intentions. Just the way he was positioning his body made his intentions obvious. If you were really in trouble, you would not be facing the goblins at an angle, but you would be directly confronting them from the front. Moreover, the fact that his clothes were still without a single scratch made it obvious that this was a trap. I will not forget this. Shaking my head, I could not help but say, yeah, that is what every third-rate villain says. Get an original quote for once. Soon after I said that, the students' not-so-polite curses reverberated throughout the area I was in. I did not really care though. I was pretty much already near the exit of the dungeon. Spurt, spurt, spurt. In a different dungeon, the figure of a silhouette quickly moving through the narrow paths of the dungeon could be seen. Occasionally, as the figure passed by the monsters present in the dungeon, without stopping, he would directly hack towards them and kill them precisely in one blow. He was swift and decisive. His every sword strike flowed like water, smoothly and seemingly with no lag in between each movement. What was especially striking about the figure were his 2 blood-red eyes that shone under the dark cave-like environment. He looked like the apex predator of the dungeon. Ruthless. Whenever he passed, devastation would be left in his wake. Damn it, how is he so strong? A few meters away from Kevin, following behind him, 3 students wearing red-colored uniforms could not help but curse out loud as they saw the numerous monster carcasses by the side of the cave. They ranged from goblins to kobolds and many other monsters that were not present in the lower-end dungeons. As they ran, trying their best to follow Kevin, one of the red-clothed youths could not help but say out loud, "Damn it, if we do not succeed in making him fail, we will not be able to get into the Blood Supremacy faction. Let us pick up the pace." It was true. The 3 youths that were following Kevin were right now trying to accomplish a mission they had been assigned moments before entering the dungeon. Prior to entering the dungeon, they had been approached by several members of the Blood Supremacy faction, one of the top factions of the academy. The reason they approached them was to offer them a chance to enter their faction. As long as they completed the task they had been assigned, they would be allowed into the faction. Back then, after hearing what their tasks consisted of, they immediately agreed. To them, it was not something that was actually that hard. Stop Kevin from passing. If they managed to succeed in making Kevin fail, they would be granted access to the Blood Supremacy faction, which would bestow great honor upon their families. Enticed by the offer, the 3 youths tried their best to make things difficult for Kevin. However, they had severely underestimated how strong Kevin was. As they ran, glancing towards the youth that just spoke, another youth could not help but shout back, "We are already doing our best here. Then how in the world are we still slower than him despite the fact that he is fighting monsters too? Damn it, I do not know." Listening to the 2 youths conversing, the last youth remained silent. After a while, he slowed down his pace and stopped. "Let us stop." Noticing the youth's odd behavior, the 2 other youths slowed down their pace and turned towards him. "Ha, what is going on, Marcus?" Glancing at the 2 youths before him, after hesitating for a bit, the youth called Marcus spoke. "Goo guys, let us just give up." Opening their eyes wide, the 2 youths could not help but find their voices raise a few pitches. "What? Why?" Noticing the surprised expression of his 2 comrades, Marcus clenched his fist and said, If we can barely catch up, how are we supposed to prevent him from passing the exam? He is a monster. I do not think joining Blood Supremacy would outweigh the cost of offending someone like him. Someone who is bound to reach S rank, no, SS rank." Finished with what he was saying, silence prevailed in the surroundings. The 2 youths could not find any words to rebuke Marcus with. They too felt that what he said had some merit. Although they wanted to refute Marcus's statement with all their might, they could not. Especially not after witnessing firsthand how powerful Kevin was. Kevin, with his talent, was bound to reach the S or SS rank. It was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. No. Clenching his fists, one of the youths shouted, "We are already committed, we cannot give up now." Glancing towards Leo, the other youth, Carl, shook his head and stopped moving. Lowering his head in defeat, he said, "No, Leo, Marcus is right. There is no point in going through this trouble to offend a potential SS-ranked hero just to join a faction that might not even take us seriously. It is not worth it." "What? Not you too, Carl?" Lowering his head, the other youth named Carl apologetically said, "Sorry." Staring at both Carl and Marcus for a few seconds, Leo, the last youth, clicked his tongue and turned around. "Tisk, you both are a bunch of cowards." Pointing at both Carl and Marcus, Leo said, "I will report this back to the higher-ups about the fact that you both pussied out at the last moment. Kiss your chances of joining Blood Supremacy goodbye." Without waiting for them to respond, Leo stormed off deeper into the dungeon. Phew-uck. Cursing out loud, Leo clenched his jaws and fists hard. How did he end up being paired up with 2 pussies? What was so great about Kevin? Although yes, he agreed with them with the fact that he was bound to reach SS rank in the future, nothing was set in stone. What if he died? Would they not have just lost an opportunity to join a faction that would help them in the future? For what? A dead person? Moreover, they were all D-ranked. There should not be that much of a difference between them. Bunch of cowards. Moving forward, glancing downwards, he saw a pile of goblin carcasses on the ground. Kaka. Pu. Kicking the goblin to the side, Leo could not help but spit at the goblin corpse and curse out loud. "Fucking goblin." Screech. 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 Ha. Moments after he did that, multiple enraged sounds reverberated throughout the whole dungeon. The ground shook. What is going on? Moments after, in the distance, what met his sight almost caused him to have a heart attack. It was a sea of goblins with red eyes madly sprinting in his direction, seemingly lost in rage. There's so many goblins? Taking a step back, Leo opened his eyes wide. Soon after, he sprinted backward with all his might. Shit, help. Chapter 106. Congratulations, student rank 1550, Rendover. Time taken to complete the dungeon 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 8 seconds. Exiting the dungeon, I heard the speaker on the side of the dungeon announce my result. Glancing at the time, my mouth twitched. To be honest, that was a lot faster than I had expected. Moreover, there was one teeny tiny problem regarding my score, and it was that I walked throughout the whole way out. Yeah, I walked. I never increased my pace once. My path was so unobstructed and unexciting that all I did was take a stroll. I normally wouldn't have complained, but well, it was so anticlimactic that I was at a loss for words. I guess not being Kevin really did make a difference. No unexpected events happened. I guess I was so used to things always happening to me that I had completely forgotten that I wasn't the protagonist. Trouble wouldn't come knocking at my door unless I looked for it, unlike Kevin, who was the opposite. He had trouble looking for him. With regards to my timing, the only time I wasted was probably when I was educating Arnold, but that barely took like 10 minutes. As I got out of the dungeon, even though I probably scored amongst the highest of the first years, no one was paying attention to me. Why? Quick, get the healers. Call for all D-ranked members we can get. We've got a horde of goblins inside of the D-rank level. We've received reports regarding multiple supervising students that are barely holding on. Yeah, I sort of forgot that was supposed to happen. Somehow, I felt a bond akin to camaraderie towards the student that had triggered the goblin horde. I too understood how it felt to be under the constant attacks of multiple enraged goblins at once. If I had to be honest, it wasn't the greatest experience. Glancing at the chaos that was ensuing, I shook my head and headed back to my dorm. Since my score had been recorded by the school system, there was no need for me to stay behind. Moreover, I had a far more pressing issue at hand. It was finally time I started planning for my future company. A couple of hours after the goblin incident, Donna's office space. Hey. Having just come back from sorting out an incident that had just happened during the examination for the first years, Donna was exhausted. Who knew goblins had such a quirk? Sitting on a large leather chair, in front of a large desk where multiple monitors were set up, Donna sighed. She had just come back from an hour-long meeting with the other faculty professors regarding a certain incident that happened in the D-ranked difficulty dungeon. A mass goblin horde of enraged goblins. In the end, after checking the body cams of the dungeon supervisors, they were able to find out two things. 1. What triggered the mass goblin horde, and 2. The fact that the blood supremacy faction had targeted Kevin. In the end, although Donna wanted to do something with regards to the interference of the blood supremacy faction, she couldn't do anything as there wasn't enough evidence. At the end of the day, it was the students' word against theirs. Unless they had concrete proof detailing their plan, the school board wouldn't move, especially since the blood supremacy group consisted of many powerful individuals. Although Kevin was important to them, as long as his life wasn't threatened, the academy wouldn't antagonize such a large faction. Damn it. Just recalling the triumphant smirk Gilbert had on his face during the meeting irked Donna to no end. She was so close to sending him straight to the hospital, but out of sheer willpower, she managed to hold back. More so because she remembered who his father was. Sighing once again, Donna turned on her laptop and replayed some of the camera footage she got from the supervising students inside of the dungeon. Soon, a series of battles that were caught from the webcams of the second and third years in the dungeon trial was being played in front of the monitor before her. The first footage she got was regarding Kevin. Kevin's swordsmanship was just like what she had first seen back in the enrollment test. Beautiful. His every sword strike was light as a feather. However, beneath those gentle sword strikes laid a heavy destructive power that connected fluidly with his next move. Every time he hacked with his sword, the strike would appear and disappear constantly, seemingly like a mirage. Unless you were an expert in judging the mana flow in the air, his attack pattern would be completely unknown, making it especially hard to fight against. Aside from that, whenever he fought without using his sword art, each of his movements was natural like flowing water. His swordsmanship was so well polished and sharpened that it seemed more suitable to call it a performance rather than swordsmanship. It was evident that he had put blood, sweat, and tears into getting to where he was now. He wasn't ranked 1 for nothing. He was both talented and hardworking, the perfect student in Donna's book. Next was Jin. His attacks with the daggers were truly domineering and vicious. He stabbed directly at his opponent's heart and brutalized anyone who was constantly on the defensive. Using his speed to his advantage, he constantly cut, smacked, and stabbed every goblin that was before him. Rather than a trial, it was more like a one-sided massacre. After checking Jin, Donna then proceeded to check the logs of the more outstanding students. From Amanda, Emma, Melissa, Han Yufei, and many more. As she watched, she scribbled down anything that she thought they could improve on. For example, Amanda tended to waste too much time replenishing her quiver whenever it ran out of arrows. Donna thought that if she managed to reduce that time, she would become even more deadly for the opponents. Donna believed that the short time frame Amanda used to switch in between quivers could prove fatal for her, especially since it created an opening for the opponent to exploit. She definitely needed to watch out for that. Of course, Amanda wasn't the only one with flaws. Everyone had flaws, Kevin included. Therefore, for the next 10 minutes or so, Donna wrote what she felt her students needed to work on. However, as she was analyzing the footage, she soon paused on a certain video. Him again? Appearing before the screen was the image of a student leisurely walking down the dungeon. He had jet black hair and deep blue eyes. Though his looks weren't bad, he looked average in every way. But that wasn't the reason why Donna was paying close attention to him. Aside from the suspicious things that she had caught him doing during the Hallberg incident, the reason why Donna was surprised by the video was because of the student's expression as he walked. He looks bored. Bored? Yeah, he truly did look bored. Just his posture alone made her think so, as it carried no hint of wariness towards his surroundings. His back was hunched, and his arms were drooping on the ground. Exactly how a bored person would look like. Scanning through the camera footage, the only thing Donna saw was just him walking around the dungeon unobstructed, completely bored out of his mind. Like that, for the next 5 minutes, that's all Donna saw. What is going on? Is there any more footage? After the first clip ended, taking out another file belonging to another supervising student, Donna quickly replayed the file and checked the footage for any signs of the student of interest. Same thing. In the end, after 10 more minutes of scanning, she was once again presented with the same image of him just walking down the dungeon, bored out of his mind. Just what is going on? Why were there only videos of him walking and not fighting? Something didn't add up. Checking more files, Donna was once again presented with the same scenario over and over again. Just what? The problem with the videos that Donna was shown was that the student in question barely appeared in them. He only appeared for at most 5 minutes in each clip. There really wasn't that much footage regarding him. And this was mostly due to the fact that he wasn't a student of interest according to some professors, meaning that not many second and third years were monitoring him, unlike the higher-ranked students. Therefore, he only appeared sparingly. Only when the third years were already present in that location that footage of him appeared. Other than that, everything else he did during the dungeon raid was a mystery. You could do that. In the end, after hours of footage, Donna was able to understand what had happened. And when she did, she was completely speechless. Turns out that the student in question, because of the fact that he was walking, managed to avoid all of the monsters in his way. Each time he was surpassed by a student, they would immediately fight against the monsters that were ahead of him. They were pretty much clearing the path for him. This way, throughout the whole time he was making his way out of the dungeon, he didn't have to fight a single monster. But wait. Stopping the footage midway, Donna soon noticed something. Tap, tap, tap. Quickly typing at her keyboard, Donna furiously looked through the series of data that displayed the scores of some of the students. Soon her eyes paused on a student's profile. Student, Rendover. Dungeon clear time 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 8 seconds. Head count 79. Head count 79. Just when did he kill that many goblins? Throughout all the footage she saw, she never saw him lift a finger once. How was it possible for him to have such a head count? Something wasn't right. Quickly cross-referencing with the footage she got, she soon found out that from time 0 hours, 57 minutes, and 29 seconds, student Rendover had a head count of 79. From that point onwards, it didn't move. Lightly licking her lips, Donna's brows furrowed. 79 goblins in less than 1 hour. That speed is comparable to the score of some of my best students. Click. After looking at the videos for a bit longer, closing down the tabs, Donna leaned back on her leather chair. Crossing her legs, she couldn't help but mutter to herself. Student Rendover, it seems that there really is something special about you. Chapter 107. Unaware of the attention I was getting from a certain instructor, I walked back to my dorm. My mind was currently preoccupied with something that I had been meaning to do since back in the Northern District. Start my own company. I had long realized that financing myself through one-time cash endeavors wasn't going to cut it. I needed a more long-term solution, something that would last me for a long time. Hence why I was currently in deep thought. I already knew what I was going to sell. It was a product that was still not out yet. A revolutionary product, as some might call it. Mana cards. A concept that only appears in the latter half of the novel and sweeps through the market like a storm. Something that both villains and heroes crave. An item that enables people to manifest spells without the need to actually learn the spells. According to the timeline of the novel, it was currently only in the developmental phases. No, rather, it was probably still not there yet. Perhaps only the idea was there, but no one actually decided to go through with it yet. Though I didn't know how to fully create them, as I never went into too much detail in my novel, I knew a general concept. What resources were needed to create the cards, and the general concept behind how it worked. Moreover, I didn't actually need to know all the details with regards to how to make them. That wasn't my job. That was someone else's job. I would provide them with the concept, and they would develop it for me. That was the first part of my plan. Of course, having a product wasn't the only thing required in order to set up a company. Though crucial, there were other things I needed, such as an outlet to protect and add value to my product. Something that would give my company both protection and publicity. Fortunately, I had already thought of a solution to my problem. Get a backer. A backer that could both protect my product from competitors as well as bring a good name to it. And I knew just the right person in mind that could help me. Thus, in order for me to carry out my plan of creating a company, I needed to get in contact with two people, Melissa and Amanda. They were the two people that would play an instrumental role in creating the foundation of my company. I needed to contact Melissa with regards to the creation and development of the cards, as she was the only person I knew who was smart enough to develop the product. And regarding Amanda, I needed to contact her with regards to possible cooperation with her guild. Rank 1, Diamond Ranked Guild, Demon Hunter. I mean, what better backer was there? Unless you were another Diamond Ranked Guild, no one would dare touch my company. Especially not when it was sponsored by the #1 ranked guild. An almost untouchable existence. Fortunately, contacting Amanda wouldn't really pose a problem for me as I knew her character well. As I've said before, Amanda always paid back her favors, and she owed me one. After all, I did save her back in Hallberg. Moreover, even if it wasn't for the fact that she owed me one, I was sure that the deal would go through, as it would also be beneficial for her guild, as it would help them gain another source of income. Who would reject such an easy source of income? Regarding Melissa, I also thought that getting her approval wouldn't be too hard, since she would also gain another source of income. After all, financing her research endeavors wasn't going to come cheaply. In the end, after contemplating for a long time, I headed back to my dorm to sort out my thoughts. I needed to do a lot of planning. Click. Hue. Opening the door to my dorm, I quickly slumped down on the white mattress of my bed. The way back to my dorm was uneventful. Nothing really happened. Laying down on my bed, staring at the white ceiling of my room, I couldn't help but mumble to myself as my thoughts drifted in a different direction. If I rank in the top 100 I would be granted a better room, right? Though I wouldn't be in the Leviathan building, as that was exclusively for the top 10 students. Perhaps there was a chance I could be upgraded to the Manticore or Hydra buildings. Right. After all, if I did rank highly, I would stand out even more. A top 100 student in the Horned Sheep building? That was like having the best footballer in the world play for a second-rate team. It just didn't make sense. Actually, regardless of my rank, I needed to change my room. Even if I had to pay for the new room, I needed my own private training room. I couldn't stand the training grounds anymore, especially since I had to hold back whenever I trained there, as I had to be careful not to reveal the sword art I was practicing. After all, a 5-star art was extremely sought after. It was probably on the same level as an S-ranked skill. Its value was that enormous. What else? Frowning, I started thinking of all the things I needed to sort out by the end of next month. Recruit Ava, develop the basic concept of a magic card, and set up a company. I also needed to somehow contact Kevin with regards to going to Imra, reach E rank, and handle mercenary stuff. Ugh, shit. Holding my head with both hands, I couldn't help but groan out loud. Just thinking of the things I needed to get done by the end of the month gave me a massive headache. Very depressing. Hue. After 10 minutes of self-depression, letting out an exhausted breath, I sat up straight. Alright, let's just solve one problem at a time. No point in me complaining about life. Might as well get everything over with fast so that I had fewer things to do later. And out of all the things I needed to do, I first chose to complete the basic outline of the magic card. After all, without it, I wouldn't be able to set up a company. Where is my stuff? Glancing around the room, I rummaged through some of my drawers and took out a pen and a paper. Sitting down on my desk, I quickly drew the rectangular outline of a card. The concept behind magic cards wasn't that hard. Simply put, they were cards that had spells engraved on them. Moreover, what made them special was the fact that they weren't a one-time use item. They could be used many times before needing to be replaced by a new one. Monster core powder, tulip leaf extract, orc bone marrow extract. Listing all of the items required to create the card, I turned on my phone and looked for the prices of the items I was listing. I needed to make a basic calculation of the costs of the production for each card. This way I could get a better idea of how much I needed to invest for the creation of the first batch of cards, which I would present to my investors. 30,000 U. After more than 30 minutes of research, I managed to get an approximate calculation of the cost of creating a card. The spell on the card was the G-ranked spell, Ice Glaze. Honestly, it was pretty expensive for a regular person to buy, but it wasn't too absurd. Well, for big guilds, this was basically lump change. Alright, that's doable. Leaning back on my chair, I nodded my head multiple times. I of course would sell the cards for a higher price, but overall, I could already see this being a hit. I won't go into too much detail with regards to the card, as I too didn't know too much about the specifics, but essentially, using the items I had just listed, a medium that could be used to store mana could be created. Through that, the medium could be turned into a magic circle through which a spell could be used. Higher ranked magic circles could also be engraved on the cards, but as obvious as it may seem, the price would shoot up dramatically. Why? Simply because higher ranked spells required more mana. Staring at the white ceiling of my room, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. I guess I will earn the ire of all magicians after this, HA. Although everyone could wield mana, the ones that have the most affinity with it were magicians. Through the usage of magic spells, they could invoke fireballs and many other supernatural phenomena. If magic cards were introduced, I would essentially enable people to become magicians. I could pretty much already envision a mass of low-ranked mages protesting outside of my company building. After all, with the introduction of magic cards, no one would want to partner up with them in dungeons. I mean, cards were cheaper than hiring mages. Of course, the protests would quickly die down after a while. Magic cards couldn't totally replace magicians. It may seem like that at first, but as time passes and people realize that magic cards weren't as they thought they would be, magicians would once again be sought after for dungeon raids, especially since proficient magicians didn't need too long to cast spells, unlike the cards that required a bit of time to activate. Moreover, magic cards required a lot of mana to activate. Reason being that a lot of mana was wasted in the process of activating the card. In terms of efficiency, mana cards were not on the same level as proficient magicians. But I didn't care. With the protection of the Demon Hunter Guild, I was without a doubt going to be safe regardless of whether there was a backlash or not. Plus, no one would find out I was behind the creation of the cards, as I'll just use a pseudonym. Alright, I've pretty much finished with the framework of the card. Now all I have to do is contact Melissa and Amanda. After spending 2 more hours researching the cards, standing up, I stretched my back. I guess I need to make a trip to the Leviathan building, huh? Guess I did. After all, it was better if I didn't leave things for later, as I had a lot of things to do. Moreover, that was where Melissa and Amanda were currently at. Welp, here goes nothing. Like that, after washing my face in the bathroom, I headed out of my room. Clank. Chapter 108. Halt. A muscular individual wearing a black uniform with a lock insignia on his right chest pocket appeared before me. He stood before a large gate that obstructed my path with a stern expression. He lightly glanced at me and said, "State your purpose." I briefly glanced at the guard before me, and instantly, a cold sweat appeared on my back. Although I didn't show it on my face, I could feel an immeasurable pressure emanating from him. He wasn't someone I could mess with. By my estimates, he was at least B rank. To think the guards protecting the Leviathan building were ranked this tightly. This just went to show how much emphasis was placed on the students in the Leviathan building. Their whole building was guarded by B-ranked individuals. How crazy was that? I smiled politely and responded, "I have someone whom I wish to talk to." He glanced at me indifferently, scrutinizing my body for a couple of seconds. Then, the guard apathetically asked, "Appointment?" Momentarily taken aback, I couldn't help but ask, "That's a thing." Hold on. An appointment? Why would I need to make an appointment to enter a dorm room? It's not like I was going to meet a famous CEO or the school directors. The guard noticed my confused expression and shook his head. He sternly said, "It seems like you don't." I apologize, but I can't allow you to enter. You must make an appointment beforehand to gain access to this building. Wait, but I really do have to meet someone. I apologize. Tisk. I clicked my tongue after seeing that the guard wouldn't budge. I could only helplessly turn back. Now what? There was no way I could sneak inside the building, considering how secure that place was. Did I have to give up and just look for another time to approach them? Sigh. I guess that was the only viable option I had at the moment. As I walked back, I couldn't help but kick one of the rocks on the ground. Ridiculous. Why in the world would you need to make an appointment to enter a dorm? When Amanda came to my dorm, I didn't see her making an appointment. Discrimination, I say. Moreover, I never mentioned the fact that appointments were needed when entering the Leviathan building in my novel. Was it perhaps because in the novel, Kevin only used to interact with certain individuals, and not the lower-ranked ones? Hence why such situations never occurred. I wasn't sure. Shaking my head, I couldn't help but curse at whoever made it that way. Are you Ren? I heard my name being called as I was heading back. Without much thought, I turned around to check who was calling me. I soon froze on the spot. Recovering quickly from my daze, a large smile appeared on my face. Perfect timing. Much to his confusion, I hooked my arm around Kevin's shoulder and dragged him all the way back toward the entrance of the building. "Help me out, will ya?" Ha! Heading back toward where the guard had stopped me last time, I fearlessly moved forward. Now that Kevin was with me, there was no need for me to make an appointment. Move aside, moving through with my best friend. What? Confused, Kevin couldn't help but glance at me, seemingly looking for an explanation. Before I could answer, the guard's loud voice reverberated throughout a 5-meter radius, obstructing my path once again. "Halt. I've already told you that Anel." "Kevin?" As the guard spoke, he noticed Kevin next to me halfway through his sentence. He stopped and glanced at Kevin in confusion. Smiling wryly, Kevin nodded his head toward the guard. Hello, Ron." Smiling at Ron, with my arm still on Kevin's shoulder, I emphasized how close my relationship with Kevin was. "Hello, Mr. Guard," called Ron. "As you can see, I do have an appointment, and it's with my friend over here, Kevin Voss." The guard seriously glanced between me and Kevin, his frown deepening. He turned toward Kevin and said, "Is what he said true?" Speechless, Kevin didn't know what to say at first. He had just been coming back from his elective when he noticed Ren near the entrance of his dorm. He called his name because he was confused as to why he was all the way near his dorm. Little did he expect to be dragged all the way toward the entrance of his dorm by him. He was really confused, wondering just what was going on. As he was about to confront Ren, he turned his head to the side and was subjected to Ren's pleading expression. Although Ren was smiling, his eyes were saying, "Say yes, say yes, say yes." Sigh. Kevin couldn't help but shake his head. He thought, "I don't even know why I'm doing this." Kevin helplessly nodded his head toward Ron and said, "Yes, exactly what he said." Ron took a good look at both me and Kevin for a couple of seconds before stepping to the side. He said, "Though I don't believe that's the true story, I have faith in your character, Kevin, so I will let this one slide." Smiling apologetically toward Ron, Kevin thanked him. "Thank you, thank you." With Kevin next to me, I finally gained access to the Leviathan building. Clank. Entering the building, I removed my hand from Kevin's shoulders and couldn't help but be in awe. The word luxurious was an understatement in this case. It felt as if I had entered a new world. The Leviathan building was shaped in a semicircle, with an enormous park in the middle featuring benches, flowers, fountains, and trees. Bars and other facilities were present by the side of the garden, where staff members continuously served students sitting outside under the sun. The whole building looked modern and sleek, and I could now understand why Kevin chose to remain top-ranked. This was just too good. "So?" Kevin's questioning voice disrupted my daze as I admired the scenery. Glancing at him from the corner of my eyes, I tilted my head and said, "So what?" Kevin stared at the park and asked what had been bugging him since the beginning. "Why did you claim to be my friend so that you could gain access to the building?" He didn't understand. Normally, if a person wanted to enter the Leviathan building, they had to make an appointment beforehand. This was done for a reason. The academy wanted to avoid situations where too many students would flock to the Leviathan building. With its top-end facilities, students would no doubt use this place as a hangout spot. The school had set up this place on purpose to be off-limits to regular students. It was designed this way to serve as a motivating factor for students to work harder. Students would work harder to get a better ranking, maybe hoping to enter this building. It was sort of a reward for their hard work. Well, I needed to talk to a couple of people. Kevin raised his brow, glanced in my direction, and asked who. Actually, I might need your help once again. Ha! Seeing the confusion on Kevin's face, I clarified. Could you perhaps do me a favor and ask Melissa to meet me down at the park? Melissa? That Melissa? Yeah, that Melissa, by the way. The cafe over there. I nodded my head and pointed toward the cafe in the distance. I decided to meet her at a cafe because I wanted to avoid being alone in the same room as her. That girl was dangerous. All right. Kevin's mouth opened and closed a couple of times. In the end, after a couple of seconds, he nodded. Although Kevin wanted to know why he wanted to talk to Melissa, he didn't ask. He wasn't close enough with Ren to ask about his business. Moreover, he remembered how Ren had saved his life once, so he guessed helping him was a way to thank him for what he did. Sighing, Kevin took out his phone and quickly sent Melissa a message. Someone called Ren Dover wants to meet you. He said to meet you at the cafe inside of our dorm. Make sure you include my name, Ren Dover. Melissa for sure knows who I am. As I watched Kevin typing, I made sure to remind him to mention my name. After all, I did talk to her before. She was bound to know me. She does? I think so, probably. Now that I thought about it, did Melissa really remember me? Yeah, she should. Considering the fact that I had a few interactions with her in the past, chances were that she knew who I was. But thinking back on her character, there was a chance she forgot all about me. That would be problematic. She said she'll be down in 10 minutes. Oh sweet. I guess she did remember me after all. I was needlessly worrying. Anything else I can help you with? I stared at the beautiful garden before me for a couple of seconds and glanced at Kevin. I thought for a moment before saying, actually, I do have something to discuss with you too. Kevin pointed toward himself and skeptically said me? Yeah, but let's leave that for another time, as it'll take a while. Taking out my phone and glancing at Kevin, I said, do you perhaps have a phone number? I do. Looking at my phone, Kevin nodded. Of course he had a phone. Who didn't have a phone in this day and age? All right, exchange it with me. I'll text you when the time comes. Trust me, you won't regret what I will offer you. Kevin took my phone and typed in his number. He didn't put what I had said to heart, as he had a system. Unless it was a 5-star manual or an A+ ranked skill, there wasn't really anything that could catch his interest these days. If you say so. After typing his phone number, Kevin checked the time and waved goodbye. All right, I have to go. I guess it's goodbye for now. Nodding my head, I waved back. Yep, all right, see you later. Kevin disappeared into the distance. Watching him leave, I let out a long breath and made my way toward the cafe. As I walked there and sat on a chair outside the cafe, I couldn't help but think to myself, it's a good thing I got Kevin's number. This way, I can find a way to convince him to bring me out of this world. After all, I already had in mind the thing that could convince him to bring me to Amura. Chapter 109. All right. Sitting down on one of the chairs of the cafe, I patiently waited for Melissa to arrive. To be honest, one of the reasons why I chose to directly go to the Leviathan building rather than Section C to meet Melissa was so that I would not be noticed. Last time, although not much, I believe people did find out that I had met with Melissa. I did get stares here and there, but with people not knowing for sure what had happened, it ended there. But that was more than enough for me to feel annoyed. I was already getting plenty of unnecessary attention to begin with. I really did not want any more. In all fairness, their reaction was understandable. She was a very popular young girl, after all. With how beautiful and smart she was bound to be the center of attention from all of the boys in the academy, be it junior or senior. Fortunately, this time, I had come prepared. I specifically chose to meet her at the Leviathan building, the most prestigious and high-end building in the whole academy. The reason? At the moment, only 30 students were officially part of this enormous building. Yes, only 30. It housed the top 10 from all years, first to third. Moreover, with them being relatively prominent figures, like leaders or high-ranking members of their own factions, they rarely frequented this area. This meant that, at the moment, it was the safest and most unnoticeable place throughout the whole academy. Plus, this was pretty much my only option. Considering Melissa's personality, it was not like I could ask her to meet me somewhere in private. She would definitely reject it, even if she had goodwill towards me, which she definitely did not. Either way, although there were not many students, there were still some. So, I chose a rather secluded space inside the cafe. After all, even if we exclude Melissa's popularity, we were going to talk about an extremely sensitive topic. I could not afford to let others know what our conversation was about. As I was waiting for Melissa to come, I saw her figure in the distance after 5 minutes. Raising my hand to let her know where I was, I said, over here. Spotting me from the distance, wearing a white blouse and long jeans, Melissa headed in my direction. Wearing thin gold-rimmed glasses, her elegant figure slowly walked toward me. As the sun brightly lit the surroundings, Melissa looked absolutely stunning in her casual clothes. If not for her personality, I estimated that she would be even more popular. Arriving before the area I was sitting in, she took a chair, sat down, and crossed her legs. Frowning, Melissa said, refrain from looking at me for any longer than 5 seconds, please. The very image of you repulses me. Speechless, before I had time to respond, I watched as she glanced around and added, I see, so you chose this place because you were afraid I would do something to you. Shaking my head with a smile on my face, I said, of course not. She was spot on, that damned witch. Interlocking her hands together, Melissa rested her chin on top of her fingers. Looking at me, she said, anyways, let's skip all the pleasantries and tell me why you have called me here. Nodding my head, I rummaged through my pocket and handed her the things I had worked on before. Of course, the paper I handed her did not contain everything I wrote, just a small percentage. After all, if the deal did not go through, I did not want her to steal my ideas. I just gave her a small fraction of the data. Right here. What is this? Glancing at the paper I placed on the table, Melissa frowned slightly and took it. Something I have been working on. Raising her brow, she skeptically looked at me. And I nudged for her to open the paper with my head and smiled mysteriously. Just look. The frown on Melissa's face deepened at my expression. She was almost tempted not to open it, but in the end, curiosity got the best of her, and she opened it. Ha. As she schemed through the paper, Melissa looked unimpressed at first. However, a minute later, her eyes opened wide and she sat up straight. Seriously looking at the paper in front of her, Melissa's hands could not help but tremble from time to time. Got her. Watching Melissa quickly look through the draft for the magic cards, a triumphant smile appeared on my face. She had caught the bait. You owe you, how much? After a solid minute, putting the paper down, Melissa tried her best to calm her uneven breathing. This idea was something she had been researching in her spare time, but it was not as detailed as this. Moreover, she could tell that this was not everything. Smiling, whilst leaning back in my chair, I said, how much for what? I knew that I had caught her attention. There was a reason why I specifically chose Melissa for the card development, and that was because she was the one who created them. When I said she was the only person smart enough to create them, I meant that literally. Along with the many other inventions she had made, Melissa created magic cards. If there was one person I could rely on for the creation and development of magic cards, it could only be her. Cut the crap, stop beating around the bush, and tell me how much for the idea. Placing my hand on my chin, I thought for a moment before shaking my head. Actually, I am not looking to sell this idea. Taken aback, Melissa's voice raised a few pitches as the aura around her intensified. What? Then did you just come here to gloat to me about your brilliant idea? It better not be that. Technically it was her idea, but she did not need to know this fact. Noticing her souring mood, I put my hand forward and continued. No, actually, I am looking to cooperate with you. Soon after my words reached her ears, Melissa paused. Frowning, she asked, cooperate? Yeah. Placing her hand on her chin, Melissa questioningly asked, and what will our cooperation consist of? Smiling, I said, you finish the product, I take care of selling it. Very simple, right? Leaning back on her chair, Melissa fell into deep thought. Although Melissa had only caught a glimpse of the idea, she felt that if she had more data to work with, she could really develop the concept written on the paper. Moreover, with the money she could make from selling the cards, she could finance her more expensive projects. This was a win-win situation. After thinking things through, seemingly having come up with a decision, she glanced at me and said, 60/40ths. Tilting my head to the side, I asked, 60 me and 40 you? Shaking her head, she corrected, no, 60 me and 40 you. Smiling, I shook my head. Sorry, but no deal. There was no way I was going to agree to such unfavorable terms. After all, the idea was pretty much almost complete. Frowning, Melissa thought for a bit longer before saying, 50/50ths. Shaking my head once again, I looked her in the eyes and seriously said, 90 for me, 10 for you. What? Abruptly standing up, Melissa's F-ranked aura rose from her body. It soon enveloped a meter radius of where we were standing. Not minding her aura one bit, I remained seated with a smile on my face and slowly said, you very well know that you are going to make a lot of money off of this, so do not ask too much. Even if she was earning 10%, the amount of money she could make, if the cards sold, would without a doubt be more than multiple times her current budget. With how smart she was, she definitely knew this. She was just trying to test the waters, and I saw through her intentions. Realizing that her pressure was doing nothing, she clenched her teeth, and the pressure decreased. After a bit of thinking, she firmly shook her head. No, 10 is too little for me. I let out a sigh and shrugged my shoulders. Standing up from my chair, I prepared to leave. All right. Taken aback, Melissa could not help but ask, you are leaving? Nodding my head, I confirmed yup. Caught off guard by my abrupt behavior, Melissa became slightly flustered. What? Are you not going to keep negotiating? Nope, 10 is already too much for me at the moment. Smiling inwardly, I pretended not to notice Melissa's slightly flustered appearance and waved. If that is all, I guess it is time for me to head back. Biting her lips, after a couple of seconds, Melissa weighed her options and softly said, all right, I will do 10. 9. Opening her eyes wide, Melissa glared at me and shouted, what, do you want to die? Did you not just say 10? Shaking my head, I ignored her outburst and said, sorry, I changed my mind once again. 8. For a short moment, no words escaped Melissa's mouth. Soon after, her whole body shook. She looked to be on the verge of exploding. In the end, after noticing that I was not paying attention to her, she gritted her teeth until the sound of them grinding resounded. Melissa angrily spat, give me the paper now. Smiling, I knew that I had one. Though I could have pushed it to 7%, I would have had to be prepared for my life to be on the line. I was not sure if an extra percent was worth risking my life. Taking out a contract that I had prepared beforehand, I handed it to Melissa. Here, angrily snatching the contract from my hands, Melissa did a quick skim before taking out a pen and signing it. You better pray I do not see you around for at least a week, or else. Laughing, I sat back on my chair and leisurely drank my half-finished espresso. Haha, no need to be so harsh, we are business partners now. That is not a good way to talk to someone whom you are going to be working with for a long time. Right, partner? Terrifyingly glaring at me, Melissa said, say one more word and I will skin you right here and right now. Sheesh, no need. Did you say something? Nope. Shutting my mouth, I complied. Though I won today, I still had to be careful. If I really did get on her bad side, no matter how prepared I was bound to suffer. After making sure that everything was sorted, Melissa took the complete set of files regarding the magic cards and stood up. Glancing at me one more time, she squinted her eyes and said, it seems like you are hiding quite deeply, no? From Arnold to the theories, and now this. I will not pry because I do not care, but you better not do something to jeopardize this deal, or else I will make sure you suffer. Soon after Melissa said that, she directly left. It seemed like she was eager to look through the things I had given her. Sure, watching Melissa leave, I could not help but look back at the first time I met her. That time, I was a nervous wreck. Thinking about what would have happened to me if I got on her bad side scared me to no end. But after all that had happened to me these past few months, I have to say that I really had gained a lot more confidence. I was no longer scared of interacting with people, much less the protagonists. I guess my past life's influence had caused me to become this cowardly, self-conscious person who had become extremely introverted and passive. I sort of trapped myself inside this self-preserving shell that stopped me from getting hurt. I guess with everything that had happened to me in the previous world, more so than not wanting to interact with them, I was scared of getting hurt. What if this world was fake? What if one day I would wake up finding myself back in my own world, having just woken up from a coma? Would all of that had happened to me be nothing but a long dream? Those sorts of thoughts haunted me every day. Now, not so much. I just refrained from thinking such things. I realized that whether this world was fake or real, all that mattered was my happiness. Even if it was all the fruit of my imagination, why must I hold myself back? At the end of the day, I was the one going through this experience. What did other people's opinions of me matter? Glancing at the blue sky, I took a deep breath of fresh air. My life, my rules. I will stop at nothing to achieve my own happiness. Chapter 110. Shortly after Melissa left, I decided to head back to my dorm. Although I wanted to meet Amanda as well, after a bit of thinking, I refrained from doing so. It was better if I approached her once Melissa was done with the project. After all, I don't think Amanda was capable of understanding the concepts behind magic cards yet. I wasn't saying she wasn't smart, as that was far from the truth. It's just that Melissa was on another level. Moreover, it was better if I had a tangible version of the magic card before meeting Amanda. This way, Amanda would be able to smoothly convince her father and the Demon Hunter Guild board members. Bye, guard named Ron. Leaving the Leviathan dorm, at the gates of the compound, I made sure to wave goodbye to the guard from before. It wasn't a bad idea for him to remember me. This way, it would save me the trouble of explaining why I wanted to go in. Indifferently glancing at me, Ron lightly nodded his head and proceeded to ignore me. Not minding it one bit, I proceeded to head back to my dorm. What's next? On the way back to my dorm, I could cross the magic card project from my to-do list. Though it would take a while, I was sure Melissa would get it done sometime soon. Next on my list, should I try recruiting Ava? In all honesty, this task was going to be hard. Not because she had some crazy dealings with some other guilds, or that she was currently being held back by something. No. The reason was that I really did not know much about her. In the novel, she could have been considered a low-end side character, one that rarely shows up. I obviously didn't give her enough character development as a result of her low appearance in the novel. In my defense, I was thinking of developing her character when the time she showed up to fight the demon army came, but, well, I died. Didn't really get to that part. Thus, I was now facing a dilemma. What was Ava's past like, and what could I use to entice her to join me? Money? Fame? Strength? I needed to know more. Fortunately, I knew someone who could help me. Taking out my phone, I quickly dialed a number. Ring, ring, ring. Hello, Ren. Yo, small snake. What's going on? I need help with something. Actually, before you say anything, I'm currently in the process of recruiting Leopold, so I might not be able to help you right away. That fast. As expected of my right-hand man, he gets things done. All right. Do you think you could do a background search on someone for me? A background search? It depends on who. Ava Leafs, the profile I had previously mentioned I wanted to recruit. Pausing for a second, a loud sigh could be heard from the other side of the phone. Soon after, Small Snake responded, "Sigh, you're in luck." Confused, I couldn't help but tilt my head. Did he already do it? I knew this was going to happen beforehand, so I had taken the liberty to do a background check on every member of the list of people you had given me. Opening my eyes wide, a faint smile appeared on my lips. How thoughtful of you, Small Snake. It's not me that is thoughtful. It's just that a certain someone seems to love dumping their work on me. Listening to Small Snake, though he wasn't here, I couldn't help but avert my eyes to the right and switch topics. All right, before you hang up, look up the profile of someone called Benjamin Hoare. I found him to be quite interesting. Did you just not even hear what I had said? Cough, cough, what's that, Small Snake? Cough, cough, can't hear you properly. It seems like the signal is faulty. Stop pret. Tack. Damn signal. Turning off my phone, I put my hands behind my back and whistled my way back to the dorm. If only the signal was better. Well, although Small Snake was complaining, I was sure he was going to get what I asked done. It wasn't a coincidence that Small Snake was named the group babysitter. Next week, Monday, Class A25. Sitting in my usual seat, I nervously looked towards the front of the classroom. For the past few days, nothing much has happened. I mostly spent my time training and coming up with a general framework for my company, mostly regarding its scale and how the chain of command would be. I thought of letting Small Snake take control of the company too, but I refrained from doing so. I had already decided before that this company would have no correlation with my mercenary group. Well, at least on the outside. In reality, it would be the biggest sponsor for my mercenary group. So after a lot of thinking, I decided to hire someone to manage the company. With regards to whom, I wasn't sure yet. I couldn't think of anyone yet. Anyhow, that aside, today was the day that the results would come back. Though I was confident in my physical score, I wasn't too sure with regard to my theoretical score. Hopefully, it wasn't too bad. Okay, everyone, please quiet down. Standing at the podium of the classroom, wearing a nice black suit that perfectly emphasized the outline of her body, Donna raised her hand to get everyone to quiet down. Her hair was currently tied in a ponytail, and as soon as she raised her hand, her violet eyes shone slightly, immediately causing everyone to shut up. Seeing that everyone was finally quiet, Donna continued. Though there was an unfortunate event in the examination, it all went without a hitch. Taking out her tablet, Donna scrolled through it. After a couple of seconds, pressing on her screen, she looked at us and said, I have just sent you the results of the practical and theoretical exams. Soon, if you take out your phones, you should be receiving a message with the details of your exam and your scores. Glancing at her tablet, frowning slightly, Donna continued speaking. Because of past complaints, we will not announce your results out loud. We will, however, not hide your new overall rank. So if you guys are curious about your friend's ranking, you can see it in the class register. It was to be expected. After all, rank meant a lot in this academy. It sort of dictated your standing in the social hierarchy. Therefore, though you could hide your scores, you couldn't hide your overall rank. Another reminder, please don't shout when you get your results back. Please keep calm and quiet. Ding, ding, ding. Just as Donna was about to finish speaking, right on cue, multiple phone notifications resounded across the class. Without pause, like everyone else in the class, I took out my phone and quickly opened my exam scores. Hopefully, I didn't fail. My student result for Rendover shows a theoretical exam rank of 1,103 out of 1908. The physical exam rank was 81 out of 1908, with an overall rank adjustment of 197 out of 1908. Well, I guess I didn't fail. Theoretical rank 1,103 and physical 81. That was a big difference. It also had to be noted that I was currently in the top 200, not the top 100. It seems like my theoretical score dragged me down quite a lot. Sigh. Massaging my forehead, I couldn't help but take a deep breath. I couldn't be blamed for my low theoretical score. After all, I only had like 4 months to learn all the theoretical stuff that the students were supposed to learn from an early age. Actually, the fact that I wasn't last was already considered a miracle. After all, I did need to memorize the traits of over 100 monsters as well as practice a lot of advanced math for the engineering part of the exam. Fortunately, because the physical exam weighed more, I was still ranked 197. Honestly, if I looked at the results objectively, it wasn't a bad score. It was actually a really good score, especially since I was previously ranked 1,550. Though I do think that jumping from 1550 to 197 was absurd, it actually wasn't that rare, at least not for the first semester. Why? Because apart from a select few, everyone that enrolled in the lock started with similar strength. Only towards the second part of the first year would the difference in talent set the students apart from each other, at least in terms of rank. So although I did jump quite a lot, what I did wasn't something that never happened before. Still, even if I stood out as a result of my rank jump, I wouldn't have minded. The reason why I increased my rank, to begin with, was to increase my popularity. I made it that way so that it would be a lot easier for me to recruit people in my mercenary group. Well, although I did fail to reach the top 100 as I had said I would, in a way, I think this was better. This way, people would still not be wary of me. In a way that they would still underestimate me if they came across me. Moreover, though I failed at achieving my goal, I could use this setback as a learning experience. That not everything went according to plan. I was bound to face setbacks here and there. There was no need for me to brood over this matter any longer. I'll just be content with what I get. Next exams I'll do better. Alright, now that you have all seen your exam score, I would like to inform you guys about another important issue. Pausing slightly, looking towards every student in the class, Donna slowly said, it's about the multi-academy exchange. Hearing Donna's last words, my head couldn't help but snap in her direction. It was already that time? Chapter 111. It's about the multi-academy exchange. Listening to Donna, I couldn't help but massage my forehead. Damn, with everything that had been going on lately, I forgot all about this. It wasn't so much that I forgot, but rather that it slipped my mind, especially since we still had a couple of months before the event would happen. As most of you know, during the month of March, we will have exchange students staying at the lock for a month in preparation for the multi-academy youth tournament. This time, the academy has decided that only students from the 4 grade academies will participate in the exchange, as the district and regional academies have agreed to exchange with one another. Listening to Donna speak, I couldn't help but find my brows knitting slightly. These were the 4 grade academies. They were the 4 other human academies that could almost rival the Lock in terms of their educational system. Though they weren't on the same level, they were the closest substitute out there. Ludwig Academy, Theodora Academy, Kusk Academy, Velen Academy. Those were the names of the 4 great academies. The human domain had 5 great cities: Ashton City, Park City, Lillington City, Dramita City, and Conviction City. Although each city wasn't far from the others, the threat of beasts and villains meant it took about 5 hours for a person to travel between them, with Ashton City being the reference point. If a person from one of those cities wanted to send their child to the Lock, they would have to send them all the way to Ashton City. As a result, they might not be able to see their children for a very long time. Some people were willing to do that for the sake of their children's future, while others couldn't. Be it for economic problems, or the simple fact that they couldn't part ways with their children, some just couldn't send them all the way to Ashton City to make them join the Lock. That became an issue. A lot of talents weren't being nurtured properly. Very talented individuals that could rival some of the most talented people in the Lock were being provided with lower-end education. This was a big problem that cost humanity a lot of talented people. Noticing this situation, each city mayor, with the permission and sponsorship of the central government, decided to set up their own academy. One that would be the pillar of their city. Of course, each city mayor wasn't selfless enough to set up an academy for the greater good of humanity. The main reason why they built their academy was to retain their talents and keep them in their city so that in the future they would become high-ranked heroes representing their city. After all, each city was currently in a tough struggle against the demons. That was how the 4 great academies came to be. 4 academies that, although they weren't at the level of the Lock, were the closest thing someone could get to the Lock. Ludwig Academy for Park City, Theodora Academy for Lillington City, Kusk Academy for Dramita City, and Velen Academy for Conviction City. Anyways, although most of you know that information already, that's not the reason why I brought the topic up. Pausing, Donna took out a pile of papers and placed them on the podium before her. Right here, on the podium before me, there are application forms that you guys need to fill in order to apply for an academy exchange with one of the 4 grade academies. Since this year it's the 4 grade academies' turn to do an exchange to the Lock, next year, during your second year, it will obviously be your turn. Right. So basically, in the month of March, our class will be filled with exchange students coming from the 4 grade academies. I already knew who some of them were, as they were either going to become Kevin's ally in the near future or become Kevin's enemy. It couldn't be helped. There was bound to be an arrogant person here and there. The exchange will only last a month or 2, and just like this year, it will start 2 months prior to the multi-academy tournament. Squinting my eyes as I listened to Donna, I glanced at the papers on the podium. Another word that had caught my attention as she spoke was the multi-academy tournament. As the name suggests, it was a tournament between all academies in the human domain, including the 4 grade academies, the Lock, and the regional and district academies. It happens at the very end of each academic year, and it wasn't like the usual tournament arcs where it would be a 1v1 tournament to decide who was best. No, it was a tournament with many unconventional games, such as the Codebreaker, Academy Virtual Guild Wars, Abyss Salvage, Tower Defense, and many more. Heck, one of the games was a retouched version of football. In essence, the tournament was extremely unique. More so than it being something to display the individual achievement of each student, it was more to display the academic might of each academy. It wasn't like those boring tournament games that you would usually get in novels, where it just consisted of plain fighting. No, it was very different from that. Another thing about the multi-academy tournament was that it would be broadcasted throughout the whole human domain. Its popularity was enormous, rivaling the Olympics and World Cup of back then. Precisely because of its popularity, tensions were high whenever the multi-academy tournament was near. Regarding the tournament, we will select applicants based on your performances by the end of the year, and from there we will place you in the first-year squad that will represent the tournament. Glancing at everyone in the class, Donna brushed her ponytail to the side and continued. When we select you, you have no right to refuse. 2 months prior to the tournament, you will be exempted from all classes, and will be directly put under strict training from the best professors in the academy, and during that time you are training, according to your performance, you will be placed in a squad participating in specific games. As Donna spoke, I couldn't help but notice a lot of the students beside me breathing heavily. Their reaction was understandable. After all, if they stood out, they would without a doubt gain both honor and fame, and if lucky, they could catch the interest of some of the top guilds. This tournament wasn't just a display of academic might, it was also a chance for students to shine. Anyhow, tournament aside, by filling the application form right here, you are agreeing to an exchange program with one of the 4 grade academies. I personally believe that this is a great opportunity for you all, as you will get to explore a whole new city as well as a new educational system that can rival that of our very own, here in the Lock. The selection will be random, so don't expect to have your friends be in the same exchange academy as yours, as there's a high chance that you will be assigned to different places. Nodding my head as she spoke, I couldn't help but once again realize how bad of an author I was. The selection will be random. With a deadpan expression, I couldn't help but recall the fact that Kevin, Melissa, Emma, Jin, and Amanda all ended up in the same academy during the exchange. Yup, so much for random. Clapping her hands to get everyone's attention, Donna smiled. Alright, I think that's that for the announcements. You are free to take one application if you wish to apply for the exchange program. As she spoke, Donna started packing up her stuff. Leaving the application forms on the table, Donna briefly glanced at us before saying, "Once you're done, come find me at my office in Section B. I've already told the guards that I'm expecting some students, so just show them your ID card, and they will let you in. I hope to see you later." Like that, finished with what she wanted to say, Donna directly left the classroom. Get me one. Me too. Soon after, like a swarm of bees, multiple students immediately headed towards the podium and took an application form. Shaking my head at the sight before me, I patiently waited for everyone to take a form before taking one for myself. Not going to lie, the idea of going to another academy for a couple of months was tempting. After all, once Kevin and the rest went to their exchange, the plot wasn't going to move forward. Might as well just study in another academy, as, apart from a few things, the 4 academies were just as good as the lock. It was also not a bad idea to go visit another city while at it. I wanted to spread my mercenary group's influence there too. Ashton City wasn't the only important place. Chapter 112, 7:32 p.m. Section B, The Lock. Walking along the corridors that lead toward the professor's office area inside the main building of Section B, I couldn't help but feel lost. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, and the numerous office spaces made it hard for me to find the exact location of Donna's office. I didn't know if this was because she was too humble or that she couldn't be bothered, but Donna, one of the few ranked heroes in the academy, decided to have a regular office. It was one that was mixed within the masses of offices in the building. I searched for office number 948, 949, 950, 951, and it should be this one. Arriving in front of an office space, with the number 952 displayed on the side, I made sure to double-check with the data on my phone before knocking. Knock. Knock. I really didn't want to end up knocking on the wrong door. Come in. A couple of seconds after knocking, Donna's crisp and pleasant voice traveled from the other side of the door. Excuse me. Heeding her order, I opened the door and soon spotted Donna sitting at her desk, going through a pile of files. Without glancing at me, wearing a pair of glasses, Donna's brows were knit in a tight frown. Clank. Closing the door behind me, I patiently waited by the side. It would be better if I didn't disturb her as she looked busy with something. As Donna was busy sorting out some papers, I couldn't but glance at the office. It was rather small, about the size of a bedroom. Decorations were sparse, as apart from a calendar on the side of the wall, everything looked rather plain and boring. There was also a small plushie next to her gray sofa on the side of the office. The lighting was also not that great. Although there was a large window on the other side of the office, it was currently nighttime, which is why it was dark outside. On top of the office, a small lamp lit the space however. Its power wasn't very strong as the corners of the rooms were dark. It was kind of sad. Sigh done. 5 minutes after I came in, exhaling slightly, Donna finally finished what she was doing. Stretching her arms, Donna took off her glasses, revealing her 2 amethyst-like eyes. Noticing that she was done, I coughed a couple of times to get her attention. Cough, excuse me. Surprised by my voice, Donna's brows shot up. Soon after, her head snapped in my direction. Ha! Spotting me waiting in the corner of the room, Donna couldn't help but freeze for a couple of seconds. Shortly after, lightly sighing as she massaged her forehead, she apologized. Sigh. I'm sorry, I was so immersed with my work that I didn't notice you. Smiling understandably, I shook my head. It's okay. I too had those kinds of moments where I would forget everything that was around me and immerse myself in my work. It was understandable. Although she did respond to my knocking, it seems like she had subconsciously responded without being aware of the situation. Plus, it's not like I could really get angry at Donna. She was after all an S-ranked hero in the hero ranking. With just a glance she could flatten me on the ground, so let's not get on her bad side. Glancing at me from her desk, with her brows still knit, Donna asked, "So what have you come here for?" "I'm here to submit my application for the exchange." Taking out the sheet she had given to us this morning, I showed it to her. Everything from top to bottom was filled. Yes, there was that. Nodding her head, Donna pointed towards her desk. Okay, put it on my desk here on top of the other applications. Smiling, I complied and placed the paper on her desk, on top of a pile of papers filled with sheets similar to mine. All right. After making sure my application was neatly stacked on top of the files, I nodded towards Donna and proceeded to head out. Thank you very much. Have a good day, Miss Longburn. As I was heading out, halfway through my way back to the door, I heard Donna call out for me. Wait. Glancing at Donna in confusion, I couldn't help but tilt my head. Did I perhaps miss something with my application? Glancing at my application on top of the piles of papers, I couldn't notice anything missing. Maybe it was something else. As my confusion grew, staring at me, Donna slightly lowered her head and said, "Student Ren Dover, I would like to formally apologize." Opening my eyes wide, I froze on the spot as a small audible gasp escaped from my mouth. Why was she apologizing to me? I was genuinely beyond confused at the moment. What did Donna do to warrant an apology? Glancing at me, Donna had a meaningful look on her face. Let me be more clear. I want to apologize for immaturely assuming that you were slacking off with your training. Snapping me out of my confusion was Donna's charming voice. However, hearing what she had said, my mouth couldn't help but twitch. Did she perhaps find out? How? I don't think she found out during the midterms, as I was sure I beat up Arnold when no one was present. I was sure that apart from Kevin and the others, no one else should have known about my abilities. Actually, aside from the midterms, there was no other way she could have found out about, crap. Now that I thought about it, there was one way for her to find out. Because I focused primarily on making sure no one saw me. I completely neglected the fact that Donna could tell the time it took me to kill the 79 goblins. Moreover, with me suddenly entering F rank, it was no surprise that she had caught onto something. However, I didn't know the full extent of Donna's knowledge regarding my abilities. Hopefully, it was only to that point. Reading my current expression, seemingly having confirmed her suspicions, Donna smiled and said, anyways, enough with that. I would like to ask you a favor. A favor? Yes, a favor. Once again, I was confused. What kind of favor would an S-ranked hero, ranked 156th in the hero ranking, possibly ask of me? With her influence, without a doubt, she could get anything she wanted. Therefore, what could she possibly ask of me, a 16-year-old student? In the end, though skeptical, I nodded my head. Sure, smiling even more after hearing my confirmation, playing the pen in her hand. With a faint smile on her face, Donna said, I would like for you to participate in the tryouts for the multi-academy tournament in a month's time. Listening to Donna's request, everything started to click. Right, I understand now. Professors had incentives, be it for students achieving rewards or getting the best overall scores in the whole academic year. Teachers would receive a bonus as compensation for their accomplishments. Therefore, as obvious as it may seem, there was also an award for the professor that managed to get the most students into the official squad for the multi-academy tournament. Moreover, if the students excel in the actual tournament, their bonus would multiply by several factors. Therefore, with Donna having a rough estimate of my strength, she wanted me to participate so that she could get an extra bonus. In the end, I was put into this situation just for a measly bonus. Just why? Putting on the most beautiful smile I could muster, I nodded my head repeatedly. A month's time, I think I'm going to be sick that day. As soon as I said those words, silence prevailed in the office space. Soon after, Donna's eyes shone slightly, and instantly a slightly overbearing yet gentle pressure bore down on me. Cough. Surprised by the sudden pressure, I couldn't help but let out a strange sound. Fortunately, although she exerted pressure over me, with the fact that I was still standing, it was evident that she had gone easy on me. Bitterly smiling, I couldn't help but ask, do I have no other option but to accept? Amused by my reaction, snorting lightly, Donna said, of course you don't. Resting the side of her cheek on her hand, Donna said, however don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do this for free. If you somehow pass the tryouts, I will personally coach you in preparation for the upcoming tournament. Frowning slightly, I fell into deep thought. Getting taught personally by Donna didn't sound too bad. Let's exclude her beauty aside. One thing that I had noticed in the past 4 months I had been in this world was that I lacked guidance. Everything that I had achieved up to this point was by myself. From reaching F+ rank to reaching the minor realm of mastery for both of my sword arts, all by myself. However, things would have been much easier if I had someone guiding me throughout the process. Oftentimes I would find myself stuck in front of a wall that I would have to break by myself in order to reach a higher level. I know that I didn't have to worry about my rank not increasing, but regarding my sword arts, without guidance, I really couldn't achieve a higher level by myself. At least not at the pace that I wanted. If only I had someone to guide me throughout the process, perhaps I would have reached a higher level of sword mastery than now. Looking at Donna from the side of my eyes, I couldn't help but realize that she was indeed the perfect person to coach me. With her extraordinary abilities, although she may not use the sword, she could definitely guide me into reaching a higher level. In terms of mana mastery, she was definitely in a league of her own. I could definitely utilize her knowledge to improve myself. Moreover, regarding the tournament thing, although I disliked standing out, as long as no one found out about my real strength, everything was going to be fine. Moreover, I could just participate in the non-combat related events. This way I wouldn't draw too much attention towards myself. If I looked at this in a positive way, it could serve as good publicity for my mercenary group. Sigh. Glancing at Donna and seeing her expectant eyes, I could only sigh to myself. Bitterly smiling, I said, what other choice do I have? None. Bitterly shaking my head, I eventually nodded my head. All right, I'll be there. Smiling widely, Donna took a paper from her bottom drawer and wrote my name on it. Great, I'll see you in class tomorrow. When the time for the tryouts comes, I'll let you know. Yeah. Nodding my head in defeat, I glanced at Donna for a couple of more seconds before heading out of her office. I definitely lost this time. This was probably the karma I got as a result of me scamming Melissa. Chapter 113. Sighing in relief, I exited the Section B compound. Donna's request definitely caught me off guard. I had come there expecting myself to just hand in the exchange form and leave, but it seemed like Donna had other plans for me. I was so caught off guard that I didn't have enough time to properly weigh the benefits and the costs of the deal. Sigh. Just remembering what had happened moments before made me sigh. However, thinking more about the deal that I had made with Donna, my mood brightened a little bit. All in all, The reason I accepted was because at that time, the deal seemed to work in my favor. And now that I had more time to think, I couldn't agree more. After all, Donna was going to be personally coaching me for a while. Yeah, we would also have coaches training us for the tournament, but they weren't going to train us based on skills, but rather train us for specific games. It just wasn't the same. And although Donna didn't practice a sword's art, that didn't matter. Her mastery over mana and scene control was in a league of her own. Sword arts didn't only focus on swords. No, scene control was one of the most important factors when practicing any type of art. Let's take the keiki style for example. In order for my sword movement to reach such unparalleled speeds, I had to coat my sword with wind scenes. If I had better scene control, I would estimate that reaching the greater realm of master wouldn't take long. Moreover, because of the fact that we were training mana control, I didn't have to reveal the sword art I was practicing. It would benefit all of my martial manuals since better scene control would improve not only the keiki style, but my other arts too. Taking this factor into consideration, refusing would have been stupid. The deal was just too good to refuse. Plus, there was another reason as to why I didn't refuse her. Why would I want to antagonize a ranked hero just for a measly tournament? It wasn't worth it. After all, she only asked for me to pass the tryout. She never said that I had to be a key player. If I managed to become a bench player, I would pretty much get all the benefits with barely any effort. There was no point in refusing if it would end up with me having a bad relationship with her, as, after all, she could help me in the future if needs be. I needed to build connections for the future. If I wanted to make it till the end of the novel, I couldn't just leave bad impressions everywhere I went because of my mindset. I needed to think long term. There were times where I needed to take a loss well, as long as it wasn't too big of a loss. Though I said that, smiling to myself, I couldn't help but realize how favorable the situation was for me. Though it looked like I took a loss, I really didn't. I mean, as I said before, I never really needed to be a key player. All that was required of me was to pass, nothing else. Realizing this, I couldn't help but lightly chuckle to myself. She may have won the battle, but I've won the war. Well, we both profited, so I wasn't too sure about that. Regardless, now that that was over, it was time for me to head back to my dorm. It was already late, and I needed to rest. Along the way back to the dorm, recalling something, I typed something on my phone and sent a quick message. It was about time I tackled my biggest problem. Smoke filled the surroundings as the color red enveloped the sky. The sound of falling debris could be heard everywhere as torn buildings and infrastructures appeared everywhere. Obvious signs of skirmishes appeared everywhere as craters and gashes appeared on the empty streets of the current undisclosed location. Cough. With some difficulty, an elegant beauty got to her feet. Her skin was white as jade, and her long black hair gently fell to the side of her face. She looked absolutely stunning. However, there was something different about her. She had two long black horns on the top of her head. Standing up straight, the matriarch's elegant red gown was now tattered, and the outlines of her curvaceous body were revealed. She stood expressionlessly in the center of the wreckage and surveyed the surrounding destruction, as well as the massive crater around her. Silence covered the area she was in. The atmosphere was so stifling that it made one unable to breathe. Less needed to be said to the demons kneeling beside her. After her contractee, Elijah, got killed a few months prior, the matriarch found herself in a state of weakness. During the time she was injured, searching everywhere, and using her clan resources, the matriarch found out that the one who was responsible for killing Elijah was Amanda Stern, daughter of the guild master of the #1 ranked guild in the human domain. This news caused her to become helpless, as in no way was her tribe able to contend nor even provoke such a behemoth. However, as she went through the reports, she realized that what was reported was fake. As Elijah was her contractee, she managed to somehow glimpse at the scenes before his death, and from what she saw, the real killer wasn't Amanda. No, it was someone else. Yet no matter what she did to find out, she had no idea who was responsible. In the midst of her looking for the real killer, she was suddenly ambushed by her fellow clansmen in hopes of overtaking her position. Thus, after a long and arduous fight, she somehow managed to come out on top. After fighting with her life on the line, and having lost a part of her strength, the matriarch found herself drained of energy. However, despite her current predicament, she couldn't show it on her face. Forcefully swallowing the iron-like taste that coated the back of her throat, the matriarch spoke. "What have you got to say for yourselves?" Angeli cough. A sharp sound cut through the air. As soon as the matriarch spoke, one of the demons kneeling on the ground tried to speak up. However, as soon as the first words came out from his mouth, an overbearing pressure enveloped his body completely. Suppressing the demon with some of the last remaining strength she had, the matriarch slowly said, "Oh, it seems like your respect for me has fallen so low that you no longer refer to me by my title, huh?" The matriarch's full name was Angelica von Droya, the current head of the Charm tribe, a subsidiary of the Lust clan. The reason for her current outburst was because she was currently the matriarch of her clan. Being referred to by her name meant one thing: the demon no longer recognized her as the matriarch. "As soon as you got wind of my injury, you tried to seize your opportunity, how sly." As she spoke, Angelica's gaze was directed towards the few demons kneeling beside her. The latter's usually imposing and arrogant faces were now listless and filled with powerlessness. It was obvious that they were currently being suppressed by the matriarch. "To think that you would be so brave, and naive to think that you could stand up to me thinking that you could beat me just because I was injured, very brave. As Angelica's bare feet moved around the demons, an imposing pressure slowly formulated around her body. It made everyone present unable to look at her in the eyes. How disappointing. Though she tried to hide the news about her injury from her fellow tribesmen, she couldn't hide it for long. They eventually found out. Thus they schemed behind her back so that they could take this opportunity to rise in the ranks. Unfortunately, they had miscalculated. Although Angelica had been weakened by Elijah's death, she was still, after all, a barren borderline Viscount-ranked demon. They never stood a chance against her, to begin with. As her slender jade-like legs moved around the demons, Angelica slowly glanced at each of the demons beneath her. Smiling slightly, she opened her mouth. "Were you just here to fight for my rank, or were you here for something else like?" As she spoke, her every word caused the demons around her to shudder uncontrollably. No. Pausing slightly, Angelica's eyes squinted as she looked towards her left, where a black coffin buried within the earth appeared in the central point of a small crater. On it were several pale skeleton hands outstretched towards a red gemstone embedded in the middle of the coffin. As the skeleton hands reached for the gemstone, it looked as though they were desperately trying to grab it, forming a strange scene where it looked like the skeleton hands were gently hugging the black coffin. Glancing at the coffin, Angelica slightly muttered, "The coffin of the cursed knight." A sharp sound echoed. As soon as those words escaped from her mouth, her very presence shone like a star, as a red hue that seemed to envelop the world cascaded towards all of the demons present. The red hue expanded, and the demons' bodies pulverized into dust. They died instantly. Huo. Taking a deep breath, Angelica closed her eyes. She was seemingly trying her best to recover her energy. A minute after closing her eyes, as if sensing something, Angelica's eyes slightly opened as she looked towards the distance. "What brings you here?" Everblood. Chapter 114. Thwop. Appearing from the other side of a tall building, standing in the air, a 2-meter-tall demon with 2 large bat-like wings covered the sun. Staring at Angelica from above, Everblood slightly laughed. "Kukiku, it seems like nothing escapes your perception, Madam Matriarch. Or would you prefer it if I called you Angelica von Druria?" Voom. As soon as those words escaped from Everblood's mouth, an overwhelming pressure bore down on everything around her. Everything around her blew away as fine miniature crevices appeared beneath the ground where she was standing. Staring at Everblood with bloodshot eyes, she venomously spat. "It seems like you have a death wish, Everblood." Noticing Angelica's expression, Everblood covered his mouth. From time to time his body would tremble as he tried his best to hold his laughter. In the end, he failed. "Kukiku, kuku ha 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 ha. What are you laughing at?" After a couple of seconds of maniacal laughter, wiping the tears that had appeared on the corner of his eyes, Everblood couldn't help but say, "There's no need for you to pretend anymore." "What are you talking about?" Leisurely standing in the air, Everblood glanced at Angelica with slight contempt in his eyes. "That as of right now, you are not my match." As if Everblood's words pierced her heart, Angelica couldn't help but grit her teeth in anger. Staring at Everblood in the air, with her jaw clenched, Angelica angrily spat. "So it was you who planned all of this?" Pausing for a moment, whilst still in the air, Everblood shook his hands as he innocently said, No, believe me. I'm innocent with regards to this incident." "Then what are you here for?" Pausing, a wide smile appeared on Everblood's face. Glancing at the black coffin, he slowly said, "I'm just here to borrow the coffin of the cursed knight." Voom. Instantly, the world around Angelica became dyed in red, as a humongous pressure bore down on everything within her vicinity. Taking a step forward, Angelica glared at Everblood. "How dare you cough?" However, before Angelica could finish her sentence, she abruptly put her hand on her mouth, and black blood dripped from the gaps of her hands. Noticing Angelica's predicament, licking his lips, Everblood couldn't help but chuckle as he slowly descended from the air. "Ah, it seems like you've run out of gas. What a pity, Kukiku. You." Kneeling with one leg on the ground, Angelica gazed at Everblood's figure slowly descending in the air. A hint of helplessness appeared in her eyes. Glancing away from Everblood, Angelica couldn't help but stare at the black coffin a few meters away from where she was. The coffin of the cursed knight, an ancient demon artifact that she was granted due to her meritorious deeds. It had the miraculous effect of granting fast recovery, as well as increasing training speed. It was an almost godlike item that every demon below Viscount rank would drool over. Its value was tremendous. If not for her tremendous strength, she would have never been able to keep the coffin until now. However, as soon as news of her contractee dying spread, lower-ranked demons instantly tried to fight her for it. Winner takes all. That was how the demons operated. Even if you were of the same race, the demons didn't care. To them, primordial desires overtook their rationality, prompting them to greedily take whatever they desired. Only through power could a demon rule over another demon. Now that Angelica was in a weakened state, it was her turn to face the music. She was alone and powerless. Here, throwing a black round object towards Angelica, Everblood made his way towards the black coffin. Swoosh. Taken aback, catching the object with her right hand, Angelica couldn't help but take a look at the object she caught. "Ha, a demon fruit? Take it as a little compensation for me borrowing the coffin of the cursed knight." Staring at the demon fruit in her hand, Angelica wanted to throw it back at Everblood, but considering her current strength, she could only helplessly take the fruit. Smiling at Angelica's resignation, Everblood arrived before the coffin. "Ah, just the thing I needed." Glancing at the coffin a couple of more times, Everblood nodded in satisfaction. This was indeed what he was looking for. Because of an incident in the past, he had been severely injured and lost a major part of his strength. Now, with the aid of the coffin, he could finally recover from the injury and even climb towards a higher rank. Taking the coffin with both hands, Everblood's smile deepened. Before leaving, glancing at Angelica, who seemed to have lost all reason to live, Everblood amusingly said, "It's time. Listen here, matriarch. I may have a clue with regards to who was responsible for your little puppy's death." Snapping her head in Everblood's direction, Angelica's face became ferocious. Her body suddenly became revitalized as the ground around her shook. Rumble. Who? You better not be playing tricks on me. Kukuku, no need to be so aggressive. Here. Smiling widely, Everblood shook his head. Taking out a picture from out of thin air, Everblood lightly threw it in Angelica's direction. Swoosh. Ha, what's this? Catching the picture with her hands, Angelica glanced at it. On it, a picture of a youth with jet black hair and deep blue eyes appeared. In the picture, he was seen wearing a casual set of clothes, walking in a busy shopping district. Glancing at Everblood, Angelica questioningly asked, "Who is this?" Smiling, Everblood didn't respond. Fwop. Extending his enormous bat-like wings, he took the large black coffin and slowly levitated in the air. Well, I guess that's it for me. I hope you resolve your little problem. Wait. Ignoring Angelica's voice, levitating in the air with the coffin in his hands, Everblood flew away. Soon he disappeared into the distance. Helplessly watching Everblood fly in the distance with her coffin, Angelica stared at the picture in her hand. So you are the one. Fuyua. Burning the picture in her hand, Angelica slowly stood up. Stumbling a couple of steps, she deeply etched the image of the boy in the picture into her mind. I don't care if you aren't the one who killed Elijah, but since you are my only lead, you will have to be the one to bear the consequences of my wrath. Not so far from where Angelica was, in the air, glancing below him, the smile on Everblood's face vanished. Oh, how I waited for this moment. Because of what had happened 3 months ago in the dungeon, Everblood had lost a lot of supporters within the tribe he was in. Recalling the humiliation he faced at the hands of a young kid, the Baron of Everblood's face couldn't help but savagely twist. Because of you, little bastard, destroying my clone, I lost part of my strength and everything that I had worked hard for, my position, my strength, my honor, everything. Fiercely glaring at the ground below, unbounded thick bloodlust enveloped the area he was in. His bloodlust was so thick that it slowly created a tangible wave of red. For UAA. However, the bloodlust left as fast as it came. Staring into the distance, Everblood's smile relaxed. But that's fine. Taking out a similar photo to the one he had given to the matriarch, Everblood caressed it slightly as his face twisted savagely. Looking at the picture, Everblood spoke to it, almost as if he was speaking to the person himself. Can you imagine my surprise when I saw your picture when I was investigating what had happened to Angelica? At first the very sight of you caused me to be overwhelmed with rage. You wouldn't believe what I went through because of you. Levitating in the air as he casually talked to the picture in his hand, it looked as though Everblood was talking to one of his old lifetime friends. I lost my elder position. I was scorned by those who used to be my subordinates. And what made things worse was that I couldn't fight back as my strength dropped below the Baron rank. I was no longer called Baron of Everblood, just Everblood. Pausing, Everblood looked into the distance as he reminisced about the things he went through the past 2 months. After a couple of seconds, staring at the picture in his hands, Everblood continued, in the midst of my despair, the only thing that kept me sane was the very image of you. Oh, just imagining myself torturing you in the worst possible ways caused my heart to shudder uncontrollably. I wanted to meet you so many times. Just imagining myself skinning you alive enthralled me to no end. But I realized something. Stopping there, Everblood's face became serious. Glancing at the picture he rhetorically said, wasn't that a little bit too anticlimactic? Wouldn't killing and torturing you now be a bit too anticlimactic? I wanted you to despair just as much as I did, no, on a level that was far beyond what I had experienced. Pausing there, a smile returned on Everblood's face. Recalling something, Everblood's body trembled as he started chuckling uncontrollably. Kukuku, at first I thought that targeting your family would have been enough. But guess what? To my surprise, when I saw them from the distance, they were both already under the Mindbreaker's curse. Oh, the laughs. On that day, I laughed like I had never done before. Just imagining your predicament as you found out about your parents' curse. Ah, the chills I had on that day. Kukikikiku, ha ha ha. Covering his mouth to stop himself from laughing, Everblood continued. And so, after realizing how much joy I took in from imagining your suffering, I decided to hold back. You just weren't fat enough for me yet. For me to reach an even bigger euphoria, I needed for you to grow even more, stronger, more successful, happier. Only when you fall at your highest will my revenge finally be complete. Crumpling the picture in his hands, Everblood slowly spat. Only when you have a face of utter despair will I finally be able to wash away the shame that you had given me, and finally be complete. Fuo. Burning the picture in his hands, Everblood stared at the embers flying in the distance. I hope that once I wake up from my little slumber, you will still be alive. After all, I have high expectations of you. Rendover. Glancing at the matriarch in the distance, Everblood's smile deepened. Though you may not have been the one who killed her contractee, I'm sure Angelica cares none for that, but, oh well, if you can't accomplish this much, what worth is there in me putting all of this effort to get back at you, Kukikiku? Fwop. Flapping his enormous bat-like wings, whilst carrying the enormous black coffin with both hands, Everblood disappeared in the distance. Chapter 115. Inside of a large skyscraper made out of glass, multiple large portals that emanated strong magical power shone brightly. Soon after, as the light died down, a group of people emerged from the portal. They each wore different styled combat suits ranging from thin clothes to large, bulky metallic ones. Each of them carried different weapons, with some holding onto massive swords, while others held onto long magic staffs. Goodbye, squad captain. Thank you very much for today. Hope you guide us again, squad captain. Waving goodbye towards the last person that came out, all of the individuals inside the group smiled brightly. It looked like they were all in a good mood. Don't mention it, just doing my job. Waving goodbye to multiple people wearing different colored combat suits, a middle-aged man with a lazy smile on his face and a large cigar in his mouth stood within the lobby of the building. He had black hair, an unkempt beard, and a wild yet commanding aura around him that made everyone near him look at him with respect. Leopold Ray. That was the name of the middle-aged man standing in the lobby. He was a D-ranked hero and a squad captain working for the Moonlight Mercenary Group, a grade 4 mercenary group. His job was fairly easy. All he had to do from day in and day out was train the new recruits that the mercenary group was seeking to recruit. In terms of ranking within the group, he was at the bottom of the mercenary corporation. However, despite being at the bottom of the hierarchy, he was a highly respected individual by all of the new recruits. That was because he was extremely capable. During dungeon raids, he was meticulous, efficient, and safe. As long as he was in command, the raids would always be successful with the rookies barely sustaining any injury. Moreover, each recruit managed to learn a lot from Leopold, as he would always calmly instruct them when the situation called for it. However, despite such accomplishments, the higher-ups of his mercenary group didn't bother to promote him nor give him a raise. To them, a D-ranked hero in his late 30s was not worth their notice. Waiting for Leopold at the reception of the establishment, a young girl with custard brown hair and a neat gray uniform greeted Leopold with a professional smile on her face. Taking a stack of bills from the register, with both hands, the young girl handed it to Leopold. Welcome back, Leopold. Here's your payment. Ah, thank you, Natasha. Thanking the receptionist named Natasha, Leopold took the stack of bills and slowly counted each and every one of them, not missing a single bill. 100 U, 500 U, 2800 U, 5000 U. This should do for now. Nodding his head, Leopold put the stack of money in his pocket and waved goodbye towards Natasha. I see you around, Natasha. Have a safe day, Leopold. With her usually businesslike smile, Natasha waved goodbye to Leopold. Not so far from Leopold, arriving at the lobby of the building, wearing a neat black suit and sunglasses, a young man spotted Leopold in the distance and headed in his direction. Arriving a few meters away from Leopold, the young man said, "Excuse me?" Having just received his payment, hearing someone calling out for him, Leopold glanced at the young man before him and asked, "Yes?" Smiling brightly, the young man extended his hand towards Leopold. "Hello, Mr. Leopold. Let me introduce myself. I'm Small Snake." On the same day, not so far from where Small Snake was, at the Epsilon Cafe, I sat in the corner of the establishment in a more secluded area, merrily sipping on my latte. Now that I somewhat sorted out the stuff with regards to the company, it was time for me to finish my next task. I had considered recruiting Ava, but after looking through the files Small Snake sent me, I realized that recruiting her wasn't actually going to be that hard. Therefore, I decided to skip that and decided to jump straight into the hardest task first. I had to somehow convince Kevin into bringing me to Imura. Fortunately, I already knew of a way to convince him. That was why I was currently sitting inside of a cafe waiting for him. There you are. Took me a while to find you. Snapping me out of my thoughts was Kevin's figure. Currently, he was wearing a black hoodie that hid his facial features. Sitting down and taking off his hoodie, Kevin's deep red eyes were revealed. Holding on to a cup of coffee, Kevin glanced at me and asked, "So why did you call me here?" Didn't I tell you before I had a deal to make with you?" "A deal?" Glancing at me in confusion, after a while, Kevin nodded his head. Although he didn't know what the deal was, he was curious as to why I asked for him to meet me all the way over here, far from the lock. "Yeah, all right, let's hear it." Smiling, I raised my hand in an open palm position. Noticing my action, Kevin's confusion grew. "High five." Shaking my head, I smiled. "No, 5. 5. Looking at Kevin straight in the eyes, I slowly said, 5-star sword manual." As those words came out of my mouth, the atmosphere around us froze. I was offering him a 5-star manual. To be more precise, I was giving him something that would have already belonged to him in the future. 5-star manual, Levisha style. It was one of the 3 5-star sword arts that I had created for Kevin. If I had to cross-reference back to the novel, in terms of the timeline, he should have gotten the sword art. It should be in about 2 months' time. However, now that the opportunity presented itself, why not just use it as bait for enticing Kevin into bringing me to Imura? Though I wasn't sure that he would accept, I at least caught his interest. Huo. Taking a deep breath, Kevin tried his best to retain his composure. A 5-star manual, its value was immeasurable. Even with the system, he doubted he would ever get one in his life. How in the world could he possibly have a 5-star manual? Glancing at Ren, Kevin couldn't help but find him more and more mysterious the more he got to know him. Still, he wasn't impulsive enough to accept the offer like that. He knew that I wouldn't have proposed such a deal unless I wanted something from him. Therefore, taking a couple of seconds to regain his composure, glancing at Ren, he asked, "The catch?" Nodding my head, I didn't answer immediately. "You see, I have an ability that lets me foresee bits of the future." Ha! Confused, Kevin looked at me with a skeptical face. Foresee the future? Although it wasn't unheard of in this day and age for someone to have the ability to foresee the future, those people were a dime in a dozen. Moreover, they would immediately be scouted by the top guilds. That's how sought after they were. Glancing at me with even more confusion, Kevin grew cautious. Why would he reveal to me such important information? Noticing Kevin's internal conflict, I smiled. "You don't believe me?" Pausing slightly, I glanced Kevin in the eyes and said, although it wasn't clear, my ability allowed me to foresee something interesting. Warily glancing at me, Kevin asked, "What?" "That you have the ability to travel through different planets." As soon as my words reached Kevin's ears, almost as if time had frozen, he stared at me with wide eyes. Honestly, I couldn't help but be impressed by the level of bullshit that came out of my mouth. Actually, I wasn't lying when I said I could foresee the future. After all, I did have a book that allowed me to see 10 minutes in the future. But it wasn't in the way I was describing it to Kevin, but still, he didn't need to know that fact. Trying his best to remain composed, Kevin lowered his head, and in a low voice he said, How much do you know?" Smiling, I shook my head. "Not much, just about this far." I knew a lot more, but there was no need for him to become warier of me. I think this was enough for now. After all, I needed his help. I didn't need for him to start becoming apprehensive towards me. Phew, give me some time to think about it. Taking a deep breath, Kevin slumped back on the chair and fell into deep thought. A 5-star manual. He had to admit, the offer was enticing. Problem was, glancing at Ren who was leisurely drinking his coffee, Kevin couldn't help but think, should I trust him? Although he had interacted with me in the past, we never actually talked for long. At most 10 minutes. To him, Ren was someone that he couldn't decipher no matter how much he tried. The more he knew me, the thicker the veil of mystery around me became. It sort of felt like he was a being that wasn't supposed to belong to this world. Sighing, Kevin didn't know how to explain his current feelings. It was weird. "Where do you want to go? So you really can travel through planets?" Taken aback, Kevin glanced at me in confusion. Smiling slightly, whilst twirling the cup of coffee in my hands, I meaningfully looked at Kevin. "Well, to be honest, although I can foresee the future, not every one of my visions turns out to be true, but now that you just asked where I wanted to go, it seems like you really do have the ability to travel to different planets." Interesting. Opening his mouth, no words came out from Kevin's mouth. Did I just get played? Imura. That's the planet I want to go to. Imura? Are you crazy? Opening his eyes wide, Kevin couldn't but stand up and look at me in shock. It had to be noted that, although Kevin had never been to Imura before, he had a detailed description of the planet from his system. According to the system, if he went to Imura with his current abilities, only death would await him. From what he read, he had to be at least C+ to be ranked in order to even think about stepping foot in that place. Yet, he was currently being asked to go there now. The current Kevin right now was only D-ranked. How can a D-rank like him step foot into such a dangerous place? Wasn't that just like asking him to kill himself? "I'm sorry, but dash." Placing my hand forward to stop Kevin from speaking, I took one big gulp of my latte before saying, "Don't be so hasty with your refusal." "No, I'm not being hasty, I'm just not crazy." Putting my now empty cup on the table, I glanced at Kevin and said, "How about this, next weekend, Saturday, meet me outside of the train station. I will prove to you that there's no need to worry." Shaking his head, Kevin stood up. Still no. As I watched Kevin getting ready to leave, whilst still leisurely relaxing in my seat, I asked, "Are you really willing to sacrifice your chance to get a 5-star sword art like that? I mean, all you have to do is follow me next week, and you decide whether you're up for it or not." Halting his steps, biting his lips, Kevin couldn't help but feel tempted. A part of him really wanted to just leave and ignore this deal. However, if he really had a chance of getting his hands on a 5-star martial manual, he couldn't just give up like that. If he wanted to exterminate the demons responsible for killing his parents, he had to become stronger. Although he was currently on the right track, Kevin couldn't but feel that his progress was still too slow. He wanted to get stronger faster. He wanted nothing more but to kill those that were responsible for his parents' death. Just imagining how much stronger he would get once he got his hands on a 5-star manual, Kevin couldn't help but feel himself waver. Taking a deep breath, glancing at Ren from behind, he said, "Give me some time, I still need to think things through." Smiling slightly, I nodded. "Take your time, you have until next week to give me an answer." "Thank you." Seriously nodding his head, Kevin left the cafe. A minute after Kevin left, right after Kevin's figure disappeared in the distance, I couldn't help but notice a white bill on the table. Taken aback, glancing at the entrance of the cafe, I couldn't help but shout, "Hey, you still haven't paid for your coffee." Chapter 116. Staring at the busy streets of Ashton City, outside of the Moonlight Mercenary Group headquarters, 2 individuals stood on the stairs that led all the way up to the building. "Thank you for coming." Puffing a mouthful of smoke, Leopold nonchalantly stared at the people below him. Glancing at Small Snake from the corner of his eyes, he slowly said, "No problem. I had nothing to do anyways." Leopold tossed the cigarette in his mouth to the ground and stepped on it. Glancing at Small Snake, he asked, "So what did you call me here for?" Smiling, Small Snake took out a contract from a small black briefcase in his hands and handed it to Leopold. Without skipping a beat, he went straight to the point. I would like to hire you. Raising his brow, Leopold took the contract from Small Snake's hands. Oh, hire me? Scanning the document in his hands, Leopold's brows couldn't help but jump up and down. Glancing back at Small Snake, with a hint of doubt, he couldn't help but ask, is this offer real? 100,000 UA a month. I'm not reading this wrongly, right? Smiling, Small Snake nodded his head. Our leader has specifically asked for you, and that's the price he is willing to offer for your services. Me? Yes. Why? Don't ask me, I'm just following orders. Though he said that, Small Snake couldn't help but start to understand why Ren wanted to recruit him. As Small Snake stood next to Leopold, although at first glance Leopold might come across as a lazy middle-aged man, Small Snake noticed the unwavering determination that decorated his face. Moreover, the way he carried himself as well as how his deep black eyes added with his dignified aura made it seem like he was in command of everything. This proved to Small Snake that Leopold was an experienced man. He could tell from the first glance that he had been through a lot of setbacks throughout his life. Even Small Snake, who had met a lot of people in his past, couldn't help but feel that there was something different about this man. Though his presence wasn't overbearing like some of the people he met, he unknowingly felt respect for the man, equivalent to that of a soldier to his own general. So that's why. As a slight smile appeared on Small Snake's face, snapping him out of his thoughts, Leopold lightly smacked the contract on Small Snake's chest. Sorry, but I will have to refuse. Ha! Opening his eyes wide, Small Snake couldn't help but look at Leopold in confusion. According to his estimate, he was currently earning 20,000 U per month. His offer of 100,000 U a month was 5 times what he was currently earning. Moreover, from what he read, he wasn't even treated well here. Why would he reject him? May I ask why you're rejecting my offer? Smiling slightly, glancing at the papers that were now back in Small Snake's hands, Leopold couldn't help but ask back, have you seen the offer? Yes. And you think I would accept it just like that? Ah. Opening his mouth, a bitter smile appeared on Small Snake's face. Glancing at Leopold he said, you think we're a fraudulent group, don't you? Nodding his head, Leopold rummaged through his pocket and took out another cigarette. Bingo. Lighting up the cigarette, taking a big puff whilst staring in the distance, Leopold exhaled. How can a grade 1 rank mercenary group offer me such a high salary out of nowhere? At first, I was indeed tempted, but you see, I'm not looking to quit my job to join another one that has an uncertain future. Moreover, your group doesn't even have a mission to their name. I've got a family to feed, you see. Pausing, taking another puff of the cigarette, Leopold exhaled and stared at the smoke floating in the air. How do you expect me to take this offer seriously? Pursing his lips, Small Snake sighed. Leopold had a point. He had thought of this point before, but he really couldn't do anything about it. After all, as of right now, there were only 2 people in the group. Still, Small Snake wasn't a man to give up. He had already talked with Ren before, and in case the said situation arose, he would offer him one final offer. If he rejected this, then it was better to look elsewhere. 1 million U direct payment now, plus 100,000 U per month salary, everything written under a contract to prove legitimacy. 1 year, 2,200,000 U. As Small Snake proposed this offer, he couldn't help but feel a slight pain in his chest. We were talking about 2,200,000 U, not some lump change. Still, although they offered a lot of money, with what they had made from the Bull's Wrath incident, they had somehow managed to make enough money to not bleed over this matter. Moreover, Ren told him that money wouldn't be an issue in the future, and that this investment was worth the cost. Thus, trusting Ren, Small Snake decided to go all out. Dropping the cigarette on the ground, Leopold couldn't help but be stupefied by the offer. 2,200,000 U? That's like 9 years of my salary, in just 1 year. Caressing his unkempt beard, glancing at Small Snake, Leopold smiled. You've got my interest. Monday, the lock, class A25. Sitting in my usual seat, I propped up my chin with my hand. Compared to my usual lazy appearance, today I was particularly excited about the lecture. A good show was about to await me. All right, please sit down. Class is about to begin. Walking in the class, holding onto his files with his right hand, Gilbert motioned for everyone in the class to sit down. Arriving at the podium, placing his stuff down, Gilbert looked at everyone in the classroom. After everyone stopped talking, smiling slightly, Gilbert started speaking. In today's lecture we will be speaking about ranks and what they mean. As most of you know, ranks are indexes that we use to measure the average strength of a person. Ranks range from G all the way to SSS. Some say that there might even be a rank higher than that, but no one is sure about that as the current strongest humans alive have only reached as far as SS rank. As Gilbert spoke, I mostly ignored most of the stuff that he said. I honestly knew most of the stuff already, but that was beside the point as I was currently waiting for something else. And finally, 30 minutes into the lecture, the moment I've been waiting for finally happened. Does anyone have any questions with regards to what I just explained? Immediately after Gilbert said that, multiple hands shot up in the air. Pointing towards one of the girls sitting on the same side as me, Gilbert said, "You over there, what's your question?" Being picked, sitting up straight, the young girl looked at Gilbert with eyes of pure adoration. Clearing her throat she said, "Sir, is it possible for an individual to fight against a higher-ranked individual?" Smiling at the girl's question, Gilbert answered, "Good question, yes it is indeed possible. However, those cases are extremely rare, and can only be achieved by those who have pure bloodlines, as they are the only people capable of such feats. As soon as Gilbert started speaking about bloodlines, the faces of some of the students in the class couldn't help but turn ugly. Trying my best to hide the smile on my face, I couldn't help shake my head. To think that Gilbert would try to spread his faction's ideologies in the middle of the lecture. It was technically not allowed, but considering Gilbert's backing, he could do as he pleased. As long as he didn't cross the line, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted. And so, in case you want to defeat a higher-ranked opponent, you must have a superior bloodline that would grant you great talent and skills. Satisfied with his answer, Gilbert looked at the young lady who had asked the question and said, "Is that enough to answer your question?" However, pausing mid-sentence and pointing towards a certain individual on the right side of the classroom, Gilbert raised his brow. "Oh, it seems like someone disagrees with my statement." Being pointed at, Kevin glanced at Gilbert in confusion. "Me? Yes, you seem to be dissatisfied with my statement." Glancing at Gilbert, and noticing the provocative mocking look on his face, Kevin took a deep breath and spoke his mind. "Although difficult, I believe that lower-ranked people can indeed put up a fight against someone whose rank is higher. Moreover, I don't believe bloodline or lineage has anything to do with that, as there is no proof to back up such claims." He was indeed dissatisfied with what Gilbert had said. Although bloodlines could indeed help create children with higher talent, it meant nothing. As long as one put in enough work, dedication, and luck, Kevin felt that even people with normal families could beat higher-ranked opponents. Covering his mouth, Gilbert's body shook. Glancing at Kevin, Gilbert couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Ha ha ha, that's one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. To think that despite you being ranked 1 in your year you were this ignorant." Shrugging his shoulders, not minding Gilbert's attitude one bit, Kevin sat back down. "I still stand by my point." Stopping himself from laughing, as if he had come up with a brilliant idea, mysteriously glancing at Kevin, he asked, "How about this? From what I've heard, you're deranked, right?" Suddenly being asked about his rank, Kevin frowned. What did that have to do with anything they were talking about? In the end, noticing Gilbert's mocking look, Kevin nodded his head. "Yes." Smiling widely, Gilbert took out a small black spherical object from his dimensional space and showed it to everyone. "Although I'm currently B-ranked, this item that I'm currently holding right now is called the suppressor. It is an item that my father specifically gave me, and has the special ability to suppress my strength to a rank I want for 30 minutes. Though it won't allow me to jump to higher ranks, it helps me reach lower levels without batting an eye." Clenching onto the sphere, Gilbert provocatively looked at Kevin. "How about this? You and I fight, and I'll suppress my strength all the way down to D rank exactly the same as yours. Although I indeed have more experience than you, weren't we just talking about a lower rank beating a higher rank? Since you're so adamant about saying that I'm wrong, prove it to me. Show me that bloodlines don't matter." As soon as Gilbert finished speaking, a series of gasps immediately erupted in the classroom as numerous gazes concentrated between Gilbert and Kevin. To think that Gilbert had openly challenged Kevin in the middle of the class. Such a thing caused everyone in the class to be stupefied. A professor challenging a student. Such a thing was unheard of before. Frowning, Kevin seriously looked at Gilbert. After a couple of seconds, nodding his head, he agreed. "All right, I hope you won't regret your decision, Professor." Hearing Kevin's agreement, Gilbert laughed loudly, believing that Kevin was merely trying to save face. With a mocking smile on his face, he walked out of the hall as his laughter, which was tinged with a hint of amusement and ridicule, resounded across the halls of the building. "Very well, everyone follow me to the training grounds. I really want to see how Kevin will be able to prove me wrong." Chapter 117. The Lock, Section G, Arena Grounds. Many practice platforms stood in the practice grounds, while at the top, numerous youths excitedly shouted as they gazed at the youths sparring against each other. The arena grounds, which were in the same building as the training grounds, were one of the most famous places within the academy. Youths sparring against each other could be seen at any time of the day. Usually, in the arena, numerous youths fiercely punching and kicking each other as they tried their best to beat their opponents appeared to be a common sight. It was a rather imposing one at that. There was no lack of pretty girls on the platforms above, resulting in the boys below fighting with even more enthusiasm. They hoped to catch some of the girls' interest as they basked in the limelight of the fight. However, that was not the case today. At the moment, almost every gaze within the arena grounds was focused around two individuals standing on top of one of the platforms. No matter if they were boys or girls, their sights were transfixed on the two individuals at the center of the platforms. On the right, a young man with dirty blonde hair proudly stood as he looked down on his opponent. Wearing a black professor uniform, with a gentle scholarly air around him, Gilbert stood at the center of the ring. On the opposite side of him, wearing an azure blue lock uniform, an extremely handsome youth with black hair and red eyes solemnly stared at Gilbert opposite to him. When both Kevin and Gilbert walked onto the platforms, news of their bout had probably already spread everywhere. Hence, with each passing minute, the stands on the training grounds were filled with even more people. What? Professor Gilbert is going to fight against a first year? It's true. According to sources, it seems like the student he is fighting is Kevin Voss, the talented first year that managed to become D- rank at the age of 16. Yes, I've also heard that Professor Gilbert will fight him whilst suppressing his strength all the way to D- rank, the same rank as him. Leaning on one of the handrails of the arena, Hearing the discussions of some of the students present, I couldn't help but laugh inwardly. I of course knew this was going to happen. This was the event that truly created hatred between Gilbert and Kevin. It was the moment in which the two would finally cease all pretenses and officially become at odds against each other. This event was the reason why I decided to delay all of my other tasks and directly talk to Kevin with regards to bringing me to Imura. I believe that after this event, Kevin would without a doubt agree to meet me on Saturday. Smiling slightly, glancing at Kevin's and Gilbert's figures below me, I relaxed and waited for the match to start. As I watched the both of them standing off against each other, I couldn't help but think to myself, I'm really curious as to how a fighter rote looks like. Glancing at Kevin, with a proud smile on his face, Gilbert mockingly said, "Are you ready?" Stretching his arms and legs, Kevin's face became solemn as he nodded his head. "Yes. All right, since I'm older than you, I'll grant you the first move. If you manage to land a punch on me, it'll be considered my defeat." As he spoke to Kevin, atop the stage, Gilbert merely chuckled as he stared at the audience. No matter what they said, after today, his vicious beating of Kevin would without a doubt spread throughout the whole lock tomorrow. Such news would without a doubt deal a huge blow to Kevin's confidence as well as increase the popularity of his faction. Moreover, it also served as a warning towards those that were not a part of their faction. This is what happens if you mess with us. Though he was a professor, using the power of his faction, Gilbert made it seem like Kevin was the one who had challenged him. This way, once he won, he could humiliate Kevin even more. Just imagining it put a smile on Gilbert's face. Beckoning Kevin with his right hand, Gilbert said, "Come, if you insist." Powerfully stomping his right foot on the ground, unsheathing his sword, Kevin's body shot out like an arrow. A red hue covered the body of his sword. Kevin's attack was filled with power as it split the air around it. If Kevin hit a boulder, he would reduce it to powder within a matter of seconds. Soon after, a couple of seconds after he propelled his body forward, Kevin hacked forward. A sharp metallic sound rang out as Kevin's sword connected with Gilbert's hand, and dust flew everywhere. As the dust died down, Gilbert's figure holding onto Kevin's sword with 2 fingers could be seen. What? How did he do that? Watching the scene from the stands, some of the students couldn't help but be stupefied. Although they knew Gilbert was capable, they didn't know he was that capable. Even some of the more experienced students couldn't help but have a solemn expression as they recalled Kevin's attack. It was fast, powerful, and precise. Something extremely hard to block, and yet, casually holding onto Kevin's sword with his fingers, Gilbert seemed to be utterly unfazed. Not bad, for someone like you. Flicking Kevin's sword away, Kevin took a few steps back to distance himself. His face was incomparably solemn. Although some people in the stands might not have understood what had happened, Kevin understood perfectly. As soon as he attacked, coating his fingers with mana, Gilbert managed to precisely pinpoint the center of gravity of his sword. With a subtle twist of his finger, he managed to make the sword lose all of its momentum. Such skill required a high degree of control of mana as well as an understanding of swords. Staring at Gilbert leisurely standing in the distance, Kevin knew that he might have bitten off more than he could chew. Yet, a smile still appeared on his face. What fun is there if I win easily? Stomping on the ground, a small crater appeared beneath Kevin's feet as he propelled his body forward in Gilbert's direction. Futile. Easily parrying Kevin's blows with one hand, Gilbert leisurely stood in the same position. No matter where Kevin's sword moved, he would always easily find the true sword intent and parry it. Glancing at Kevin with a smirk on his face, he couldn't help but mock him. "Is that all your strength amounts to?" Shaking his head, with his other hand, Gilbert covered his mouth as he yawned. "If so, we should probably call it quits as I'm Alria, ha." Just as Gilbert was about to end things, noticing something, Gilbert looked at Kevin with a little bit of shock. Appearing from Gilbert's left side, Kevin stabbed his sword towards Gilbert's head. However, just as Gilbert was about to block, whilst still in the air as if the air was tangible, Kevin stepped in the air and forcefully redirected his body in another direction, catching Gilbert off guard. Futile tricks. Quickly adjusting, Gilbert repositioned his right foot and precisely twisted his body in a way that he was now face to face with Kevin. "It seems like this is, ha." Just as Gilbert was about to finish Kevin with an upper hook to his stomach, noticing Kevin's smirk, a bad feeling arose in his heart. And his feelings were true. Overdrive. Those were the last words he heard before Kevin's figure completely disappeared from his sight, and a strong force appeared on his right cheek. Taking 2 steps back, in disbelief, Gilbert couldn't help but touch his cheek, which was now stinging. Breaking Gilbert out of his stupor was Kevin's cold voice. "I've won." As Gilbert glanced next to him, Kevin's fist was only a few centimeters away from his face. Moreover, to make things worse, on Kevin's other hand was his sword, which he didn't use to attack. Had he used his sword, Gilbert might have actually gotten injured. Realizing this fact, Gilbert could only blankly stand there at a loss. The originally noisy surroundings of the arena turned deathly silent at the moment. Numerous people, be it students or professors, all stared at Kevin in disbelief. No one could have ever imagined Kevin would actually land a blow against Gilbert. No one. You bastard." A powerful surge of mana erupted from Gilbert's body. Recollecting himself, with an enraged roar, a yellow hue emerged from Gilbert's body. Grabbing onto Kevin's left fist that had connected to his face, thick veins protruded from the top of Gilbert's forehead as he couldn't help but glare at Kevin. Soon his aura swiftly rose as the dust under his feet swept outwards as mana poured into his body like crazy. His clothes started to flutter at the moment. His rank rose dramatically, from D- to D, D+, C-, C, C+, B- to B. Even from the stands, everyone could feel Gilbert's rapidly soaring aura. The aura was so overbearing that some of the weaker students couldn't help but sit down. Staring at Kevin's figure next to him, Gilbert roared at Kevin. "You dare!" As he shouted, the 5 fingers on his right hand were tightly clenched into a fist. Whilst still holding onto Kevin with his left hand, Gilbert's fist traveled towards Kevin's abdominal area, creating a whistling sound as the air around the fist split apart. Noticing the fist headed in his direction, towards his stomach, Kevin could only helplessly watch it connect to his body. No matter how much he tried to break free, he couldn't break free from Gilbert's grip. "Stop!" However, just as Kevin was about to despair, an enraged roar that shook the whole stadium resounded across the space. Soon after, tangible purple energy appeared in the area where Gilbert's fist was headed. Sadly, because the caster was too far, it only served as a small shield that could only reduce the power of the fist. Soon Gilbert's fist fully connected with Kevin's body. Like a broken kite, Kevin's body flew all the way to the other side of the arena as his body crashed against the walls of the arena. The extent of his injuries was unknown. "How dare you, Gilbert!" Floating in the air, an enormous purple hue covered Donna's body, as it threatened to swallow the whole arena grounds. Staring at Kevin's passed-out figure in the distance, the hue around Donna intensified even more as the area around Gilbert froze. "To think you would stoop low enough to actually seriously injure a student just because you couldn't accept your loss." Chapter 118. To think you would stoop low enough to actually seriously injure a student just because you couldn't accept your loss. Humph. Under Donna's overbearing pressure, Gilbert firmly stood his ground. He believed that as long as he didn't kill Kevin, he would be fine. Glancing at the instructors in the stands, Gilbert knew that if he had stepped over his bounds, they would have all interfered. Seeing their lack of action meant one thing: he was still in the clear. Smiling to himself, Gilbert thought, "They don't have the guts to do anything to me." Noticing the smirk on Gilbert's face, Donna shouted, "Answer me." Glancing at Donna with a smirk, Gilbert raised his voice. "What is there to answer? I let the emotions get the best of me and I went overboard." Turning towards the audience, Gilbert bowed and apologized. His voice trembled, making it seem like he was trying his best to hold his emotions back. "I'm sorry you had to see me in such a sorry state. When I saw Kevin, I was reminded of a friend of mine in the past and lost control of my emotions. I am sorry." As soon as Gilbert's words died down, a wave of support from the crowd came crashing down. "We understand," one said. "Yeah, it was just a mistake," added another. "It's not like Kevin died or anything like that." Sitting on the stands, I shook my head. Although it looked like the crowd was supporting Gilbert, they were either people from his faction or those looking to curry favor. Some in the crowd hated Kevin due to how outstanding he was. In the end, no one particularly cared about what happened to Kevin. Bullshit. Standing in the air, Donna's enraged shout shook the whole stadium. Pointing at Gilbert, the purple hue around her intensified as the area around him froze. Cough. "How shameless can you be?" Conglomerating mana into her eyes, Donna prepared to use one of her skills against Gilbert. However, before she could, multiple instructors shot from the stands and stopped her. "Donna, stop." "Instructor Donna, please calm yourself down." "Please don't do this, Instructor Donna." Staring at the instructors in disgust, the purple hue around her didn't decrease. As her clothes fluttered, she stared at everyone with shining amethyst eyes. "Good, is this how low our academy has fallen? Only interfering when Gilbert is in danger, but doing nothing when he goes berserk like he did with Kevin." Under Donna's overbearing pressure, the instructors tried their best to withstand her power. "Yes, we saw," one instructor said. "But Instructor Donna, please look around you. Please calm down and let's talk in a more private place." Pointing towards the crowd, the instructor spoke. Frowning, Donna looked around. Everyone stared at her with awe, fear, and surprise. In the stands, some students were sweating profusely, breathing heavily due to the residual magical power emanating from Donna. "Hugh." Taking a deep breath, Donna retrieved her power and glared at Gilbert. "Just because I'm withdrawing doesn't mean I'm letting this go." Feeling the pressure dissipate, the instructor sighed in relief. "Thank you, Donna. Thank you." Humph. Snorting, Donna took one last look at Gilbert before descending to the ground. She made her way towards Kevin, who was being treated by nurses. "I guess the show's over." Watching Donna head towards Kevin, I stood up and prepared to leave. The fight went exactly as I had written. It was not a bad match, but it was not really entertaining. It did not take a genius to decipher why Gilbert lost. He was simply too hellbent on humiliating Kevin, becoming careless. With Kevin using overdrive at the moment Gilbert was most vulnerable, Gilbert could not defend himself and lost. Typical scenario. Oh well. Briefly glancing at Kevin on the stretcher, I followed the crowd out of the arena. "I hope to see you soon, Kevin." A red sun shone down upon a land engulfed in flames. Screams of terror resounded as buildings crumbled. Rumble. The surroundings were in absolute mayhem as the flames burned everything down. A peaceful day in a small village transformed into a hellish scene. Humongous creatures with enormous wings and devilish smiles stood in the air, watching humans burn everything below them. The scene was the embodiment of desperation. Running along the crumbling roads, a couple carrying a small child looked left and right. Huff, huff. "Honey, quick, over here." Turning left of a building, the male beckoned his wife to follow. Spotting a small house in the distance, they made their way there. Clank. Using his foot, the male broke through a wooden door and hid inside. Placing the child down, he put his finger to his mouth. Huff, huff. Make sure you don't make a sound. Dad, what's going on? Shhhhh, please, just remain quiet here, okay? Covering the mouth of the 5-year-old child, the woman softly said, please don't make a sound. The child nodded his head, remaining quiet in his mother's embrace. For the next 5 minutes, absolute silence prevailed. However, the silence did not last. Boom. A loud explosion resounded near the house, shattering the windows. Get down. Covering the child and the woman with his body, the male ducked. Cough, ah. A constant ringing sound filled everyone's ears. The male's back was dyed in red as blood and glass shards appeared. Oh honey. Trembling, the wife covered her mouth. Trying to stay silent, she caressed her husband's cheeks as hot tears streamed down. It's okay, Just as the male was about to reassure his wife, the sound of incoming footsteps startled them. Opening his eyes wide, he shoved his wife away. Quickly, run. I'll hold him back. No, Jonathan. With grief, the wife tried to protest, but she was shoved away. Quick, go. She ran out of the house. Kukuku, what have we got here? A young man with long blonde hair appeared. Glaring at the young man, Jonathan screamed, die you bastard. Clank. Entering another house, the woman spotted a small trapdoor. Yes, clank. Opening the trapdoor, she was startled to notice it could only fit one small child. A look of relief appeared on her face. She placed the child inside. Get in here. The child tried to protest, but she shook her head. Here, hide over here. No matter what you hear, don't make a sound please. Even if you don't see us, please don't make a single sound. Mom will go to daddy now, okay? But Mom. Staring at his mother, the child tried to speak, but she placed her hand on his mouth. Please. The child nodded. He held his tears back as he watched the raw emotions on his parents' faces. Smiling, the woman gently caressed his cheek before saying one last goodbye. Thank you, and I love you. Clank. The kid's vision turned dark. After the trapdoor closed, muffled explosions rang out. Silence followed. Crouching, the kid covered his ears. Mom, Dad, please come back. Huff, 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 huff. Abruptly waking up, Kevin gulped for air. He gripped his clothes tightly. Feeling a damp sensation, Kevin noticed his bedsheets were soaked in sweat. Aw shit. Covering his eyes, Kevin recalled the faint memories of the day he lost his parents. He could only watch as his parents sacrificed their lives for him. He waited inside the dark place for hours, hoping they would pick him up. Sadly, the ones who found him were not his parents. That feeling resurfaced as he remembered Gilbert's fist. He was totally helpless. If not for someone's timely intervention, he would have been seriously injured. I need to be stronger. Kevin wanted to get stronger. He did not want to feel that way ever again. Kevin tried to calm down and recalled a conversation. Didn't I tell you I wanted to make a deal with you? Kevin took a deep breath. Huo. Clenching his teeth, Kevin came up with an answer. Never again do I want to experience this feeling. Never again. Chapter 119. Home, which one? Inside my dorm room, leisurely laying down on my bed, I scrolled through a long list of products displayed on my tablet. 2 days have passed since Kevin's incident, and by now, Kevin should already be back in his own room with only minor injuries on his body. Exactly like in the story, the events that had transpired between Gilbert and Kevin spread throughout the whole academy like wildfire. Kevin challenged Gilbert and got into an accident during the fight. That's the version of the story that was currently being spread across the academy. Although a lot of students were present during the fight, because of the blood supremacy status, no one dared to refute the real happenings of the events. Moreover, all the videos that were posted online with regards to the events would quickly disappear as fast as they were uploaded. In the end, Kevin's reputation dropped whilst Gilbert's remained the same. Either way, that was beside the point. As I already knew this was going to happen, I wasn't really shocked by the happenings. A more pressing matter was currently awaiting me. Scrolling through my tablet, I was currently on a website called World Market, the biggest online marketing shop in the human domain, sort of like Amazon or eBay back on Earth in my previous world. The products that they sold ranged from combat suits, potions, herbs, artifacts, and basically anything that you could think of. If you wanted something, chances were that World Market had it. Where is it? Herbs and potions. Scrolling through the different categories on their website, I soon clicked on the herbs and potions section. Soon after I pressed on that section, an endless row of products presented itself on the web page. The list went on and on and on. It was practically endless. Now, why was I looking through this section? The answer was simple. I needed to increase my rank as soon as possible. This was especially so considering that I was about to embark on a dangerous mission with Kevin. Imra aside, the location of where the Levisha style was located was in fact inside of a deranked dungeon. Although I already had plans with regard to how I was going to approach the dungeon, I felt that I still needed to increase my strength. You could never be too careless in such dangerous environments. If I had to say something about my current strength, it would be that it was inadequate. Thus, knowing this fact, I had no other choice but to look towards the world market in hopes of finding something to aid me in my quest of finding something that could boost my strength. I refrained from using the website in the past because I was poor. After all, each of the products listed on that site sold for millions of U. Fortunately, as I had saved enough money, I could now take a proper look at the website and see if there was anything useful. This time, I had a clear goal. Find something that could increase my rank from F+ to E. Let's skip potions and directly go to natural treasure / herbs. Yup. let's go with the E and F range, and here. As I looked through the long list of items, using advanced search, I narrowed down my findings to F and E rank, and chose the natural treasure section. The reason why I chose natural treasure/herbs rather than potions was simple: it was cheaper. And there was a good reason for that. For one, depending on the potency of the herb, they couldn't be taken back to back as the medical properties would linger in the human system for quite a while. Usually, 1 year would be the most optimal time to take another herb, however, stronger ones may require even more time to fully digest. Secondly, compared to potions which required a highly skilled person to carefully distill and mix the different types of herbs, consuming natural resources required none of that work. This also explained why upon ingestion, someone would feel unbearable pain course throughout their body. They weren't made to be consumed by humans. Either way, pretty much only the richest people could afford to use potions instead of herbs, hence why there was still a market for them. And lastly, they required an inhuman level of willpower. Because of how dense the mana contained within them was, if not careful, someone could find themselves losing their mind due to the sheer amount of pain that they experienced as they ingested the herb. This was primarily why people tended to avoid herbs and chose potions, whose effects were much milder. It just wasn't for the faint of heart. Sigh. What other choice do I have? Sighing out loud, I couldn't help but mumble to myself as I stared at the long list of herbs on my phone. Since I couldn't afford an advanced level potion, I could only go for herbs. Like they all say, beggars can't be choosers. Actually, how much do I have? Frowning slightly, taking out my phone, I quickly opened my bank app and checked my bank account. The screen displayed my account information: student Ren Dover, age 16, with a balance of 38,634,070 U. Around 38 million U, ha. Taken aback, I couldn't help but be surprised by the amount of money I had in my bank account. Though I knew I had a lot, I didn't expect it to be that much. Moreover, this was excluding the amount that I had put as a budget for the mercenary group. After short-selling Bull's Wrath stock, I made a lot of money. On the topic of Bull's Wrath, surprisingly, they managed to pick themselves up and have allied themselves with another gold-ranked guild not far from where they were. Right now it was Sword of Light and Luxious versus Bull's Wrath, and the other gold-ranked guild. That's the current talk of the Northern District. Fortunately, I had already completed the transaction before any of this happened, else I would have lost a lot of possible profit. Maybe I can actually afford an advanced potion. With the amount of money I had, I could definitely afford to buy an advanced potion, but after a bit of thought, I discarded such a notion. Looking through the prices of the advanced potion section, the cheapest potion that could help me rank up totaled a whopping 35 million U. Yeah, a bit too pricey. Thus, without hesitation, I closed the tab and quickly went back to look at the herbs section. Now, what should I buy? I looked at the listings. Titula flower, a flower that grows in high altitudes and contains a high concentration of mana. Upon ingestion for a brief period of time, the pores of the user will open up, granting maximum mana absorption rate. Price 12 million U. Warning, only use if you are at least F ranked, as death may be possible if a low-ranked individual consumes such natural treasure. Blood ginseng, ginseng that is soaked in the blood of an E-ranked beast, the red-eyed chimera. Under the influence of its blood, the ginseng's gentle properties, along with the chimera's chaotic properties, created a perfect balance between the two polar opposite energies. Through the perfect balance of those properties, users may be able to increase rank if they can absorb the energy trapped within the ginseng. Price 15,800,000 U. Warning, only use if you are at least F ranked, as death may be possible if a low-ranked individual consumes such natural treasure. Hissing slightly, I couldn't help but scrunch up my face as I looked at the prices of some of the herbs listed. Though I knew that the prices would have been high, they were still far more than I had expected. Shaking my head, I looked back at the list. Now which one should I choose? I had to choose carefully. There was another thing I forgot to mention when talking about ranking up through external aid, and there was a chance of failure. Though not big, it was still there. Therefore, I had to choose something that gave me the highest chance of success. Titula flower and blood ginseng. Those were the two natural treasures that had caught my interest. The titula flower, with its gentle and soothing properties, would definitely hurt a lot less compared to the blood ginseng. However, after a bit of thinking, I chose the blood ginseng. The reason was simple: lower chance of failure. Though the pain would be far worse than the titula flower, to me none of that mattered. I couldn't afford to throw 12 million U for nothing. I may as well spend an extra 3 million U to get a higher chance of ranking up. After all, I couldn't afford to fail. With each passing day, I realized that I was still too weak. No matter how much I tried to catch up to Kevin and the others, I was still not fast enough. They were prodigies themselves. They weren't just going to wait for me to catch up. I had to take matters into my own hand and thus, click, pressing onto the cart on the top right of my screen, I quickly purchased the blood ginseng. Taking a deep breath as I watched the transaction go through, I couldn't help but softly mumble, "Hew, time to rank up." Chapter 120. Hats off to technology. A sound like ripping paper echoed in the room. A couple of hours after I placed my order in the world market, my package arrived in front of my dorm room. I do not know how they managed to send me the package so fast, but who was I to complain? Whoa. Ripping the package open, nestled in between a couple of styrofoam beans, was a red ginseng root that rhythmically pulsated a red hue. Taking the ginseng out, I could not help but tilt my head in confusion. Sigh. How am I supposed to take this? Do I just eat it, or do I put it in a medical bath? Carefully placing the ginseng on my table, I quickly looked for instructions on what to do. After all, I was not just going to recklessly eat this, when I had no idea whether that was the right thing to do. Opening my tablet, I quickly looked through all of the information regarding the blood ginseng. No need for a medical bath, and just eating it raw is okay? Moreover, I should not steam it as there is a chance it might lose some of its medical properties. Reading the instructions on the web, my face could not help but twist lightly. Though I had never eaten ginseng before, looking at it on my table, it reminded me of ginger. And I hated ginger. Let us not complain about this any longer, and just think of it as a small sacrifice for strength. With the most twisted face I could muster, holding the ginseng by the tip of my fingers, I slowly placed it in my mouth. Right after placing the ginseng in my mouth, taking my first bite, an earthy and bitter taste invaded my tongue. Cough. So bitter, at least it is not as bad as ginger. Chewing on the ginseng, I soon noticed that although it was bitter, if I concentrated hard enough, I could taste a slightly sweet aftertaste. Though it was not very sweet, it was still something. Yep, it is starting. Chewing on the ginseng for a couple of seconds, I soon swallowed it. Thereafter, I felt a hot sensation in my stomach area. Oof. Soon after, as if all the pores of my body were stretched to the maximum, I felt the mana in my surroundings scatter towards my body at an alarming rate. It soon entered my system and headed towards the energy that came from the ginseng. The mana from the atmosphere added with the chaotic energy within my body due to the ginseng soon mixed and created a ball of pure energy that coursed through my body. As if a dam had broken, the energy shot straight into every fiber of my body, resulting in my skin turning red. Steam slowly rose from my body as green veins protruded from my skin, constantly wiggling around. Cough. Frowning hard, I clenched my teeth and suppressed the pain that was coursing through my body. It felt as though 1,000 pins were puncturing my veins. The pain was excruciating. Like that, for the next 15 minutes, I endured an almost unbearable amount of pain. It felt as though I was being skinned and burned alive. Sigh. Soon after 15 minutes of pure hell, the pain finally died down. Shortly after the pain disappeared, a wave of euphoria washed over my body as I felt my body go through a metamorphosis. My already toned muscles became firmer. All of my senses enhanced dramatically, and the mana capacity in my body increased multiple-fold. If before I could only use the first and second movement of the keiki style once or twice, now I could use it up to 5 times without a problem. Sigh. Exhaling, turbid air escaped from my mouth. I was very tempted to test my strength, but I refrained from doing so. Glancing at the corner of my room, where a deep gash appeared on the wall, my mouth could not help but twitch. I should definitely get that fixed. Rubbing my nose, I quickly checked my status window. I was curious about something. My status read as follows. Name, Ren Dover. Rank, E-. Strength, E-. Agility, F+. Stamina, E-. Intelligence, E-. Mana capacity, E. Luck, E+. Charm, G+. The profession was swordsmanship level 2. The degree of understanding of the sword had evolved to the next level, and the user would find it easier to understand concepts that were previously harder to understand. The keiki style was at the minor realm of mastery. It was a 5-star module that focused primarily on reaching the apex of swordsmanship and speed. Upon mastery, the sword art becomes so fast that before an opponent could even think about their next move, their heads would already be rolling on the ground. The Ring of Vindication was at the minor realm of mastery. It was a highly advanced sword art that created a perfect ring of defense around the user. Upon mastery, the ring could create a 3-dimensional sphere that protects the user from all sides. Because of the lack of offensive capabilities, the manual was graded 3 stars. The drifting steps was a movement art that progressed with each step. With every step taken, the user speed would increase. Unless the user stops, speed would continuously increase until the user either ran out of mana or due to injury. The skill Monarch's Indifference was rank G. It was a skill that enabled users to erase all emotions and act as a supreme monarch that only calculated the best option regardless of circumstance. No way. My charm, which refused to budge no matter how much I tried to increase it, finally increased from G to G+. Trembling whilst holding my mouth, I could not help but choke up. Quickly making my way towards the mirror, I could not help but touch my face as I muttered to myself. I really look more handsome. Everything looked pretty much the same, but somehow, today, I felt incomparably handsome. It looked as though I was shining. Alright, let us get rid of these narcissistic thoughts of mine. After admiring myself in the mirror for a couple of more minutes, I quickly switched back to my serious self. I had a more pressing issue at hand. Now that I have reached E- rank, the chances of something going wrong during the dungeon raid will definitely decrease. But if things went as I planned, nothing serious should happen. After all, I already knew of a way to avoid all dangers inside of the dungeon. I was going with Kevin. Glancing towards my right, my eyesight landed on the right drawer of my desk where a red book quietly rested. Frowning slightly, I could not help but think, since I am with Kevin, this should work. No. Inside a spacious office room, a large oval table stood in the middle. 14 individuals sat around the table as they stared towards one individual at the front of the table. I say bullshit. Smacking her hand on the large oval table, Donna shouted out loud. How is a 2-week suspension enough to justify what he did to Kevin, someone that the headmaster has personally chosen to nurture? Flinching slightly, one of the professors sitting at the table helplessly raised his hands as he looked at Donna. Donna, the headmaster is not here, and you know, considering Gilbert's background, our hands are tied. Shaking her head, Donna retorted. What does that have to do with anything? Although the headmaster is not here, even Gilbert's father would have to give respect to him. After all, the headmaster is another SS-ranked hero. Enough. Shouting out loud, a fierce pressure similar to that of Donna erupted from one of the people at the table. Try me. Turning her attention towards the person who released the pressure, Donna's sight met with an older woman with gray hair and wrinkles on her face. Is that how you speak to your elders, Donna? Fiercely staring at Donna, in a way that it looked as though she was reproaching a child, the older woman firmly said. The decision has already been set. Stop protesting. Since this is the result of the collective votes of all the people present inside of the room, all you should be doing right now is shut up and endure it. Clenching her fist, Donna pointed at the older woman as she spat. We all know that Gilbert is your nephew. You out of all people should not be talking, Chloe. Chloe Moritz was her name. Though she was not related by blood with Gilbert, having married Gilbert's father's cousin, she was considered to be his aunt. Therefore, using some of her connections, she managed to get people on her side and lighten the punishment that Gilbert was going to face for what he did to Kevin. Glancing at Donna, a slight smirk appeared on Chloe's face. Crossing her arms, she pointed towards 9 other people in the room. What does that have to do with anything? Out of the 14 of us here, excluding me, 9 decided for this punishment. Pausing slightly and squinting her eyes, Chloe slowly said. Or are you insinuating that Gilbert is related to all the 9 other people that voted? Opening her eyes wide, a purple hue erupted from Donna's body as it enveloped the whole room. Donna was so incensed that no words escaped from her mouth. She knew for a fact that Chloe had bribed those 9 individuals present. Using Gilbert's father's name, she either threatened or gave them enough incentives for them to take Gilbert's side. Just what I wanted. Standing up, matching Donna, a blue hue erupted from Chloe's body as it crashed towards Donna's hue. Thereafter, the whole room shook. Please, both of you stop. Just as the confrontation between Donna and Chloe was about to reach a boiling point, shouting out loud, a muscular individual with a large beard and long blonde hair stood up as he got in between the 2 women. Glancing at Donna, Connor Norvac could not help but look at her with pleading eyes. Donna, please go outside and cool your head. I will try to talk things through with them. I understand where you are coming from, but in the end, the votes are already out. We cannot change the rules because you are dissatisfied with the results. Fuming, Donna glared at Connor for a couple of seconds. Thereafter, seeing that the situation was unfavorable for her, she snorted and turned around. Fine. Before leaving, hatefully glaring at Chloe, Donna clenched her fist tightly. Soon after, turning around, Donna left the room. As she left the room, she did not forget to smash the door on the way out as she said, "Prepare yourselves for when the headmaster comes back, as I will tell him everything about what happened today." Chapter 121. A long yawn. Yawning, a white mist escaped from my mouth. Although it was midwinter, only now that I was awake early in the morning did I fully realize that winter was upon me. Perhaps it was because I was less sensitive to the cold. It never truly hit me until now that it was already that time of the year. 6:30 a.m. Checking my watch, I rubbed my hands together as I sat on a bench. Currently, I was at the train station, patiently waiting for the air train to arrive. Moreover, apart from waiting for the air train, I was also waiting for someone to come. Kevin. I had already texted him beforehand that I was waiting for him today at the train station. Although the events with Gilbert had happened not so long ago, he should have already made a full recovery. Therefore he should be able to make it without a problem. The only thing that I wanted to know was whether he received my message or not. A sharp hiss. It is snowing. Snapping me out of my thoughts. Extending my hand forward, I watched as an ice crystal gently landed on my jacket and melted straight after. Glancing at the falling snow in the sky, I could not help but softly mumble to myself. 5 months, huh? I have been in this world for 5 months. Watching the ice crystals continuously fall from the sky and land on my jacket, I could not help but look back at what had happened these past few months. Time sure flies. Going from a reclusive introvert to exploring dungeons, creating companies, finding comrades, meeting a new family. Really, fate is truly strange in many ways. Who could have ever guessed that my life would change so much in a matter of 5 months? I really could not explain how I felt at this moment. Everything sort of felt like a blur. The low hum of a heavy engine, snapping me out of my thoughts. The sound of an air train gently landing on the platform of the station resounded across the area I was in. Frowning slightly, I glanced around me. However, noticing that I was the only person in the station, I could not help but be slightly disappointed. Did I perhaps miscalculate? I really thought that Kevin would have without a doubt shown up considering what had happened with Gilbert. But did I perhaps misjudge something? Shaking my head, I discarded such a notion. No. I created Kevin. How could I have judged wrongly? Perhaps he was still on his way and something was holding him up. Like for example, an old grandma had fallen down the stairs and he was helping her stand up. 6:34 a.m. Glancing at my watch and seeing that there was only a minute left before the air train left, my brows knit tightly. Just where in the war world am I late? Just as I was about to give up and leave the train station, and go back to the lock, I heard a voice coming from behind me. Without looking behind me to see who the voice belonged to, I smiled and said, "Just barely. Lock station, departing." Clank. As the doors of the air train closed, lifting up in the air, it soon smoothly picked up its speed and disappeared into the distance. Sitting on the opposite ends to each other in the air train, Kevin and I quietly looked at the ever-changing scenery outside of the train. Neither one of us spoke a word. Currently, the world outside was now dyed in white as the snow coated the rooftops of every building and house in the distance. It looked truly beautiful. Glancing away from the window, I could not help but notice how empty the train was as apart from me and Kevin. No one was present. Perhaps because it was early in the morning or because the destination was far, the train was completely empty. After a while, breaking the silence, Kevin looked at me for a couple of seconds before saying, "So, where are we going?" Looking back at Kevin, without answering him immediately, I responded with a question of my own. "Before that, can I take your presents as you agreeing to my deal?" Hearing my question, Kevin did not reply immediately. Staring at his feet for a couple of seconds, clenching his fists tightly, he eventually nodded. "Yes, great." Seeing Kevin nod his head, a big smile appeared on my face. Resting my cheek on my hand, I calmly said, "We are going to the Clayton Ridge." Surprised, Kevin's brows could not help but shoot upwards. The Clayton Ridge. Yeah. The same place where I got the seed of limit and the cakey style. However, contrary to last time, I was going on further upwards of the Clayton Ridge. The Clayton Ridge was huge. When I mean huge, I mean huge. We are talking about thousands of kilometers long. Compared to the place where I took the seed of limit and cakey style, I was actually headed a lot further than that. About a 3-hour journey from the lock, approximately 1,800 kilometers in terms of distance. Glancing at me in confusion, Kevin could not help but frown as he asked, "Is that where the sword art is?" Smiling, I nodded my head in confirmation. "Yup. And we are going to the middle part, so you better rest as much as you can, as you are going to need to save up all your energy for when the real challenge comes." Once again looking at me in confusion, Kevin asked, "Challenge?" Shaking my head, as I leaned on the window and stared at the world outside that was dyed in white, a light chuckle escaped from my mouth. "What? You are telling me that you expected me to just give you a 5-star sword art without putting in any effort?" In the first place, I was only bringing him to the place where the 5-star manual was located. If I had the 5-star manual with me, I would not have asked for him to meet me this early in the morning to go to the Clayton Ridge. Understanding this, opening his mouth, Kevin tried to find words to say, but after a while he shook his head and said, "No, I get it." Raising my brow and noticing Kevin's crestfallen expression, patting him on the shoulder, I reassured him, "Don't worry, I have got it all planned out, so you will definitely get your sword art. After all, if you do not get it, I will not go to Imura." Looking up at me for a couple of seconds, Kevin nodded his head and softly said, "Okay, just relax for now and let me handle the rest." Staring at Kevin in front of me, I could not help but sigh inwardly. I could tell that what had happened with Gilbert had taken a toll on his mental state. As we spoke, I could not help but notice the impatience in Kevin's voice. Although he was trying to hide it, his subtle gestures, such as the way he clenched his fists or nervously looked outside the window from time to time, were enough of an indication for me to understand his mental state at the moment. He was definitely desperate to increase his strength so that never again would he feel so weak and desperate at the hands of someone else. I too shared the same sentiment as him, as I understood how being powerless felt. It was not that great of a feeling, if I had to be honest. Fortunately for him, I was not lying when I said that I had everything planned out. If things go according to my plans, perhaps this could be one of the easiest dungeon raids in history. Touching the insides of my jacket, I felt a thick rectangular object resting in between my body and jacket. Clenching it tightly, I could not help but think to myself, this will be the key to completing the dungeon without any problems. Destination: Clayton Ridge, Rawa. A long yawn. Lazily stretching my body, I glanced at Kevin and with my hand nudged him to stand up. "We are here." "All right." Nodding his head, Kevin stood up and followed me out of the air train. After 3 hours of sitting on a train, Kevin finally calmed down and returned to his regular serious self. A long exhale. Instantly, as soon as I stepped foot outside of the train, a wave of fresh air brushed against my body, causing me to slightly relax. Compared to the polluted air of the city, the air here was much cleaner and fresher. It truly felt great. Disrupting my moment of peace, Kevin spoke. "So where are we going?" Glancing at Kevin, I pointed towards the town below us and suggested, "Let us first grab something to eat in the town below before going to our destination. Trust me, the walk is going to be very long." Thinking for a bit, Kevin eventually nodded his head. Although he was not sure about where they were currently going, if the road was as harsh as Ren made it out to be, then it would not hurt to fill their stomachs before leaving. If you say so. Chapter 122. Inside of a densely packed forest, 2 individuals calmly walked through the heavy vegetation. Of the 2 individuals, one stood at the front looking at a large map made out of paper, whilst behind him, another individual followed him with a confused look on his face. "Are you sure we are headed in the right direction?" Scratching my chin, I looked at the map before me. Tilting the map sideways, with a hint of doubt I responded, "Should be." Taken aback, Kevin could not help but say, "Yo, you, don't tell me that we are lost." "No, well, maybe, but most likely not." Smack. Face-palming, an extended sigh escaped from Kevin's mouth. He was starting to regret his decision. Not even halfway through the journey, and they were already lost. Just what kind of guide was this? Noticing Kevin's action, I shrugged my shoulders. In my defense, I did not have much to work with. Although I had a general idea of where the dungeon was, well, let us just say that a lot of the important information on how Kevin found the dungeon was skipped in the novel. After all, back then when I was writing this part of the story, I basically directly skipped to the moment Kevin found the dungeon. Thus, because of how lazy I was back then, I was currently in a pickle. Fortunately, I had a few reference points to work with. A river, a large bent tree and a cave. Those were the things I was looking out for. Come, can I just ask why you are using a paper map instead of your phone? Coughing a couple of times, Kevin glanced at me and asked me something that had been on his mind ever since leaving the small town below. Looking back at Kevin, brushing my hair to the side, I lazily said, "What difference does it make? In the end, with this, I can just save my phone's battery." Taking out my phone and pointing towards the top right corner, I said, "Moreover, good luck finding a signal in the middle of nowhere." Raising his hands in resignation, Kevin said, "All right, do whatever makes you comfortable." I was just curious as I have never seen anyone use paper maps anymore. Briefly glancing at Kevin, I shook my head and continued to observe the map. Fair enough. I would have used my phone if there was a GPS signal that would directly show me the path I had to go. Sadly, such a thing did not exist. So I just chose to use a map as that was what I used to use back on Earth. I guess old habits never die. Let's see. Crouching down on the ground and placing the map on a rock, I squinted my eyes and made sure I was still on the right track. If I am not wrong, we are actually headed in the right direction. And all we needed to do is walk for a couple of more kilometers until we find a river. Turning the map slightly, I traced a blue line on the map stopping until a certain point. Thereafter, we are to walk along the river all the way until we find the largest tributary, and from there go hike up until an oddly bent tree can be found. The cave of the dungeon should be right behind the tree. All right, I have got it, follow me. Cross-referencing with the map a couple of more times, I nodded my head and urged Kevin to follow me. You have figured things out? Yep, if nothing goes wrong, we should be able to arrive there in about half a day. All right, so this is the place? Yep. Standing in front of a large bent tree, Kevin and I sat down on the ground and recuperated some energy. The sun had already started to set and night was quickly arriving. Taking a couple of energy bars from my dimensional space, I handed one to Kevin and opened another one for myself. Here, thanks. Taking the energy bar, Kevin quickly opened it and took big bites out of it. Looking at the cave hidden behind the tree, he could not help but ask, "So is this the place?" Munch, yep. Scarfing down the energy bar in my mouth, I quickly nodded my head. After walking for half a day and following the instructions that I had written in my novel, I was quickly able to find the right location. Moreover, now that Kevin was here, using my book as a reference point, I was able to correct any mistakes I made. Regarding the book, I had to say, future me was really smart. Whenever I went in the wrong direction, I would always just shout wrong direction, and with me seeing this in the book, I was able to discard that path and quickly find the right path in no time. Hats off to you, future me. All right, let's go. After resting for 10 minutes, whilst recuperating some of the energy, we spent hiking all the way here. Standing up, I urged Kevin to follow me. Patting his pants, Kevin nodded his head and stood up. Okay. Thus, the two of us walked through the cave. The formation was perfect, with Kevin at the front and me at the back. With Kevin's overwhelming abilities, he should be able to take care of any monster that showed up before us, and I, with my sword art, could swiftly deal with the mob-like monsters present. Well, that was if I was planning on doing anything. In reality, there really should not be much for me to do. Patting the book in my hand, I could not help but smile. What is the point of wasting time fighting monsters when you can just skip them? After walking for a while, we stopped at a fork road. There were 8 paths to choose from, and they each looked identical. Turning around, Kevin glanced at me as he asked, "Which path should we take?" Without hesitation, I immediately pointed towards the 5th pathway. The 5th one. This time I was confident with my answer, as from the moment we entered the cave, I knew exactly where to go. Moreover, stop. Ha! After walking for 5 minutes, I placed my hand on Kevin's shoulder to stop him. Ignoring the confusion in his face, I placed my finger in my mouth and quietly whispered, "As soon as you turn left, 2 horned sheep will immediately attack you." Pausing slightly and glancing downwards, towards my red book, I continued. "There is 1 male and 1 female sheep. The female sheep will wait from behind whilst the male sheep will be the one that will attack you first. The safest and most efficient way to get rid of them would be for you to immediately duck down and stab towards the male stomach, and whilst the dash." Cutting me off mid-sentence, Kevin could not help but look at me weirdly. Wait, what are you talking about?" Raising my brow, I nonchalantly said, I am just telling you what will happen and what you should be doing to quickly resolve the upcoming danger." "Yeah, I get that part. What I don't get is how you know all of this. Moreover, what are you doing with your hands?" Tilting my head, I glanced at Kevin in confusion. "I am reading? How can you read when there is nothing in your hands?" Ha! Glancing at Kevin in confusion, I waved the red book in his face. Although for obvious reasons I was not going to show him the contents of the book, I was not going to hide its existence. After all, I was going to use it quite often whenever he was around. I mean, it is not like I could hide a thick red book in plain sight. I, of course, did not need to use the book as Kevin could probably finish the dungeon alone. But why would I not want to exploit this cheat if it saved time? If you have a cheat, use it. That was my motto. Still, although one should use their cheat, they should not do it carelessly, as that could lead to bad consequences. Especially if it was a book that allowed someone to see 10 minutes in the future, things could get quite messy. Actually, considering that it only displayed Kevin's future, I guess it was not that tempting for others. Either way, as I dangled the book in front of Kevin's face, and seeing the blank look on his face, I realized that something was wrong. Can't you see this? See what? Squinting my eyes, I was taken aback for a moment. He cannot see it. Surprised by this discovery, a faint smile appeared on my lips. Interesting. I did not know that the book had this other function. I guess it made sense if you thought about it. After all, this was an item that was not supposed to belong to this world. It was not strange that Kevin could not see it. Still, this made things much easier for me. So, snapping me out of my thoughts was Kevin's confused voice. Realizing that I was looking like a complete fool, smiling at Kevin, I brushed my behavior off as a joke. I am kidding. I was just messing around. Frowning slightly, Kevin did not bother asking any more. All right. Though I was not joking about the horn sheep part. Did I not tell you I had a skill that enabled me to see in the future? Taken aback for a moment, and recalling the conversation I had with him a week prior, Kevin nodded his head slightly. How could he forget? One of his biggest secrets was exposed because of this. Yeah, so you are telling me that you just used your skill? Nodding my head, I quickly pushed Kevin forward and urged him to follow my instruction. Bingo. So quickly do as I told you. Sigh. Sighing out loud, taking out his sword, Kevin nodded his head. Okay. Chapter 123. Sigh. Standing on top of two giant furry carcasses, Kevin exhaled as turbid air escaped from his mouth. By the side of his face, a droplet of sweat dripped down from his cheek. Good job. Looking upwards, I could not help but praise Kevin. It only took him 2 minutes to dispatch 2 deranked monsters. Although he had my instructions, it was still a very impressive feat, something that I, with my E-strength, would probably not be able to achieve. At least not without some preparations. Removing his sword from the carcass of one of the 2 horned sheep, Kevin jumped down and moved next to me. Arriving before me, looking at me straight in the eyes, Kevin slowly said, "So it is true." Taken aback by his sudden action, I could not help but ask, "What is true?" "The fact that you can see the future." Stopping for a second, I nodded my head. Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. With the aid of the book, I really could look into the future. Albeit only 10 minutes, it was still a small glimpse into the future. Glancing at Kevin, who seemed to be more convinced about his decision, I smiled inwardly. I guess this worked out in my favor. With the aid of the book, I managed to thoroughly convince Kevin about what I had previously told him. This could probably help me explain a few things in the future, when I was planning on making more deals with him. Anyhow, that aside, let us see if there is anything good. Walking towards the 2 horned sheep, I took out my sword and stabbed it straight towards where their heart was. Let us see. I was currently looking for a core. Because one of the requirements for going to Imura was a deranked core, I obviously needed to find one. Therefore, what better way to get one than through monsters that the protagonist killed? With his luck, there was a high chance I could find one today. Not so far from where I was, staring at me in confusion, Kevin could not help but ask, "What are you looking for?" Snapping my head in his direction, pointing towards the area I was cutting, I rolled my eyes. "Isn't it obvious?" Frowning slightly, after a bit of thought, Kevin carefully said, "A core?" "Yeah." Nodding my head, I no longer paid any attention to Kevin and turned my attention back towards the sheep. Either way, even if I did not find a core, I could still sell the sheep for a good amount of money. Staring at me working hard at dissecting the horned sheep, Kevin wiped off the blood on his sword. "Oh, okay. If you find one, you can keep it. Take it as extra payment for helping me. No need to share it. Thanks." Smiling at Kevin, I thanked him. However, that was merely a fake smile on my side, as I could not help but curse at him inwardly. Overpowered cheat-like bastard. Screw you and your system. With the aid of the system, Kevin could literally purchase any type of monster core that he wanted. All he had to do was use the shop feature in the system. Though it required points which he could earn from the quests the system granted him, he could still pretty much get whatever core he wanted without going through the hassle of saving money or going on a monster genocide. Therefore, to him, although monster cores were valuable, it was not enough of a temptation. After all, he was not really in need of money, as he had all the resources he could ask for from the system. The more I thought about it, the more I could not help but curse at myself. Just what in the world was I thinking when I wrote the novel? Fortunately, prior to entering the dungeon, Kevin and I had an agreement with one another that I would keep all the spoils from the dungeon raid, to which he nodded without hesitation. After all, the value of a 5-star sword manual was immeasurable. Hacking away at the horned sheep, for the next 10 minutes or so I tried to look for any sign of a core. However, after pretty much dissecting the whole sheep, I could only bitterly smile as I lowered my sword in defeat. "Find anything?" "Nope." Patting me on the shoulder, Kevin encouraged me. "Better luck next time." Shaking my head, I wanted to curse at him, but I eventually gave up. It was not worth the energy. "Let us go, we still have a lot of distance to cover." Pointing further into the cave, I urged for him to follow me. Sheathing his sword back in his scabbard, Kevin nodded his head. "All right." walking deeper into the dungeon. Placing my hand on Kevin's shoulder once again, I stopped him. Stop for a second. Grabbing a small rock from the ground, closing my right eye as I measured the distance in front of me, I took a step back and tossed the rock. At the same time the rock hit the ground, multiple sharp and unnatural objects flew to the other side of the wall and impaled themselves onto the hard bedrock at the opposite end. All right, let us go. Glancing at the sharp arrows that dug deep into the bedrock for a second, I urged Kevin to follow along. Those were poison-coated arrows that could kill even a C-ranked user if not careful. Unfazed by the current happenings, Kevin followed along. This was not the first time this had happened. In fact, this was already the fourth time that Ren discovered the traps and quickly disabled them. Oddly enough, the traps that were so well hidden did not seem to bother Ren one bit as he just nonchalantly triggered them left and right. It was almost like he could see the traps. Just what in the world is he? The more Kevin was with Ren, the bigger the confusion grew. He really could not get a read on him no matter how much he tried. In the end, Kevin gave up. His main focus right now was the 5-star sword art. Everything else came afterward. As they kept moving forward, around 2 hours into the dungeon, Kevin could not help but finally realize what I meant when I said that there would not be any problems even if we went to Amura. If they could avoid the danger, there really would not be any issues regardless of how strong the monsters present were. Moreover, whenever there were monsters, I would quickly instruct him on what to do, and thereafter following my instructions Kevin would make quick work of the monsters. If I had to say so myself, we really worked well together. I would also help Kevin on occasions during fights. That was whenever there were too many monsters, or when a monster ambushed him from a blind spot. Glancing at Kevin who was quietly following along lost in his own world, I quietly muttered, "We should be close to the main area of the dungeon, so follow closely, okay?" Slowing down his footsteps, Kevin tilted his head and asked, "Main area?" Nodding my head, I responded, "Yeah." Currently, we were still on the outskirts of the dungeon. Actually, to even say we were in the dungeon would be a bit of a stretch. It was more like the tutorial part of a game, before the game actually started. To really enter the dungeon we need to first complete the tutorial area. SHHHHH. Placing my finger in my mouth, halting my steps, I put my hand to the side and indicated to Kevin to stop moving. "We are here." Currently, we were at the end of a tunnel, right before the entrance of where the first boss of the dungeon was located. Leaning against the edge of the tunnel, stealthily peeking behind the edge of the wall, I soon noticed a furry creature resting at the center of the room. Flashing its terrifying eyes and flickering its tongue was a monster known as the Hodag. A monster that came from American folklore. The Hodag was a fearsome critter-type creature that resembled a large bull-horned carnivore, with a row of thick curved spines that protruded down its back. A thick green fur coated the monster's body, as its 2 large fangs dripped saliva on the ground. According to legends, the Hodag was said to be born from the ashes of cremated oxen, as the incarnation of the accumulation of abuse the animals had suffered at the hands of their masters. At least that is what was written on the monster encyclopedia. As I studied the monster from the area I was in, I also made sure to take note of anything important in the surroundings, like if there were other monsters present, the rank of the monster, and what type of terrain the monster was resting on. Glancing at the beast from the corner of the wall, by the size of its body, it seemed to be around D-ranked at best. Kevin should be able to handle it, albeit with a little bit of difficulty. The reason why defeating the Hodag was crucial was because once we defeated the Hodag, the scenery around us should change. It might look like a cave at first, but once we kill the Hodag, everything around us should change as we will be teleported towards a different area of the dungeon. The main area of the dungeon, and where the Levisha style could be found. What is the plan? Touching my chin as I contemplated for a couple of seconds, I glanced at Kevin who was behind me. Moving back, I nudged him with my head and told him to look. Take a look. Nodding his head, peeking from the corner of the wall, Kevin's brows furrowed. Is that a Hodag? Nodding my head, I crossed my arms and softly said, "Yeah, and also the key to getting your 5-star sword art." Staring at me seriously, without asking any questions, Kevin nodded his head and asked, "Okay, so what do you want me to do?" Hearing Kevin's question, as if I was stating the most obvious thing, I slowly said, "Kill it, of course." Chapter 124. Glancing at the Hodag peacefully resting in the middle of the cave, I looked back at Kevin. In a low voice, Kevin asked, "So once we kill it, do we get to the main dungeon area?" I nodded in affirmation. "Yeah, after we kill it, the real challenge begins." "Alright, if it is only a Hodag, it should not be that hard." Kevin summoned his sword. Tensing his leg muscles, he shot directly towards the Hodag. He swung his sword towards its tail, the most dangerous part of the monster. A loud metallic sound resounded across the dungeon, followed by a loud screech. The Hodag's tail shot towards Kevin, who swiftly moved backward and dodged. I stood not far from where Kevin was. Glancing at the book, I quickly gave Kevin instructions. "Kevin, in a couple of seconds, the Hodag's tail will come at you once again. Take 1 step back and aim towards its left flank, near its leg. That is its weak spot." "Roger that." Kevin gripped his sword more tightly. The Hodag's tail came swinging towards Kevin. It was so fast that only a blur could be seen. Listening to what I had said, Kevin took a step back and narrowly avoided the tail. He shot like a bullet and aimed towards the left side of the Hodag. Kevin's sword inserted itself into the Hodag's left leg area. Green blood spurted everywhere, and a loud, enraged roar shook the dungeon. The Hodag let out an enraged roar. I created a circle with my sword, and a translucent ring appeared before me. I whistled at Kevin, who nodded and jumped upwards. Thanks. Doing a backflip in the air, a couple of meters above the Hodag, Kevin skillfully dodged the beast's tail. Twisting his body in the air, Kevin's foot landed on my ring. He propelled his body downwards with his sword aimed towards the skull of the Hodag. Like a meteor, Kevin shot towards the Hodag. I was impressed by his agility and flexibility. He perfectly understood the intent behind me placing a ring in the air. I found out that it could also be used as a place to step in the air. I should definitely take note of this feature for the future. The Hodag looked for anything to direct its anger towards. Spotting me in the distance, its eyes turned scarlet red, and it headed in my direction. I leaned back and lazily yawned. I proceeded to coat my body with mana. Just as the Hodag was about to reach me, Kevin crashed onto the top of the Hodag's head. Green blood sprayed everywhere. As the green blood splashed against the coat of mana covering my body, steam slowly rose in the air. The Hodag's blood was very acidic. With his sword deeply imbued into the Hodag's body, Kevin slowly closed his eyes and exhaled. I lightly applauded the now dead Hodag below Kevin. Well done. Kevin looked at me and asked, what next? I replied, we just wait. Right on cue, the whole dungeon shook. Both Kevin and I lost our senses, and the world around us turned dark. I held on to the side of my stomach and grimaced in pain. It felt as though my body was pulverized and then reconstructed in a completely different place. Is this the middle area of the dungeon? Kevin looked around the new environment. I brushed my hair to the side and looked around the dungeon. A clear blue sky with a pale yellow sun met my sight. Tall, towering trees stood next to us. Heavy vegetation filled with herbs and flowers appeared all over the place. It was an oddly beautiful sight, and the new environment was a stark contrast to the other dungeons I had been in. It somehow looked normal. Still, I could not let my guard down. We were in a pocket dimension that connected to the demon world. This place was filled with monsters. So where are we going? I pointed towards the east and urged Kevin to follow along. This way. Kevin followed without hesitation. After what had happened previously in the dungeon, Kevin was convinced by my abilities. As long as it did not seem unreasonable, he did not dispute my decisions anymore. I smiled to myself. Good. Convincing him that I was not a scammer was one of the main goals I had set for myself. With him being less apprehensive towards me, I could use this to my advantage in the future. Ren, stop. Kevin placed his hand on my shoulder as he pointed forward. Don't get lost in your own thoughts. There are monsters over there. A group of light blue translucent, flame-like things levitated near the ground. I tilted my head in confusion. Aren't those just F-ranked will-o-wisps? If I remembered correctly, wisps were some of the easiest monsters to get rid of because of their inability to move fast. Moreover, they were only F-rank. Even I could take care of them without batting an eye. Kevin shook his head and pointed towards the wisp-like creatures. His voice contained a rare trace of solemnity. What do you mean just will-o-wisps? Look carefully at their color. If you pay close attention, you can tell that those are not wisps but, in fact, E-ranked night lizards. Wisps' flames are dark blue, whilst the ones over there are light blue. Therefore, we can deduce that they are E-ranked night lizards, which are on a completely different level. Now that you point this out, they really do seem to be night lizards. Touching my chin and taking a better look, I realized Kevin was right. An E-ranked night lizard hunted in groups. With their incredible speed, they were almost impossible to kill unless someone else was faster. Moreover, as they hunted in groups, they terrified even C-ranked heroes, who could barely keep up. Kevin's apprehension towards them was understandable. Seeing that I understood, Kevin stared at the night lizards from the distance. So we need to be careful when handling this, as their incredibly fast speeds can even, Just as Kevin was about to finish formulating his plan, a clicking sound resounded across the area. The second movement of the Keiki-style, horizon-splitting slash. A bright light instantly dyed the surroundings white. After the light died down, the clean, dissected bodies of the lizards were sprawled all over the ground. Done, let us go. With my hand still on the sheath of my blade, I smiled at Kevin and moved forward. Standing there speechless for a while, Kevin looked between the lizards' dissected bodies and me. When did he attack? Chapter 125. Staring at Ren's back for a couple of seconds, Kevin could not find any words to say. Though he had a bit of a hunch regarding Ren's strength, when he saw it in person, he was at a loss for words. Fast. So incredibly fast and efficient. Although his attention was not directed towards Ren at the time he attacked, in the blink of an eye, all of the night lizards were killed. Not one was spared. 11 night lizards were dissected in a blink of an eye, something that would have taken him quite a while to accomplish. Recalling the lightning-fast attack that came from behind him, Kevin could not help but think to himself, could I have stopped that? Closing his eyes, Kevin envisioned himself defending against that attack. In the end, after a couple of seconds, he shook his head. He did not know. Perhaps when he was fully alert he could, but, if he was not paying attention. Stopping his thoughts there, Kevin did not want to think about it. Just the thought of him facing such a lightning-fast attack made him shudder. Sigh. Taking a deep breath and looking at Ren walking up front, Kevin had so many questions in his mind, but he refrained from voicing them out. Everyone had their secret, and he knew this fact better than anyone else. After all, he was hiding a pretty big secret himself. Although he did not know why Ren was trying to hide his strength, he knew better than anyone to just shut up and move on. Come on, we still have a bit to cover. Glancing at Kevin, who was deep into his own thoughts, a faint smile appeared on my lips. Knowing Kevin, he was most likely comparing himself to me. It was a habit of his. Be it friend or foe, he would always compare his strength to others. It was just engraved into his system. The hot-blooded mindset of a youth seeking to compare himself to someone else and see who was better. That is what Kevin was experiencing. Shaking my head, I could not help but bitterly smile. I am too old for that. Though I also wanted to get stronger, I did not have the same hot-blooded mindset a youth had. Maybe at times, but usually I preferred to stay calm. Although when I first came into this world I was anything but calm, as I adjusted myself to this place, I somehow regained my confidence and became much calmer. Moreover, well, he was misunderstanding the true extent of my strength. Although the night lizards were indeed creatures that were hard to kill for him, they were a breeze for someone like me, who could just kill them with my incredible speed. Either way, it does not really matter. I wanted to get over with this dungeon as fast as possible. After all, I had many things to do in preparation for the many tasks I had to complete by the end of the month. Thus, glancing at Kevin, I picked up my speed. Hurry up, we have still got half a day worth of distance to cover. Like that, for about the next 5 hours or so, Kevin and I swiftly moved around the dungeon and killed any monster that obstructed our paths. Of course, whenever we killed a deranked monster, I would quickly skin it alive and try to see if it had a core. However, somehow, Lady Luck was not on my side today. Well, that was what I thought until... Screech! A loud desperate cry resounded across the forest as Kevin appeared on top of a large bat-like monster. Glancing at the humongous bat that was lying dead on the ground, Kevin looked at me and asked, "This should be the last one, no?" "Yep, now move aside." Nodding my head, unsheathing my sword, I merrily walked towards the bat and stabbed towards its chest area. Squelch! Watching me skin the bat, Kevin shook his head. Out of the hundreds of monsters they had killed, not one had a core. If there was one thing he learned from Gilbert's class, it was that finding a core was just as hard as winning the lottery. The chances were almost slim to none. Just give up. The probability of getting a core is really small, so you better just be. Humming sound. Humming sound. Just as Kevin was telling me to give up, pulling a purple orb-like object that continuously pulsated a purple hue, I raised my brow towards Kevin as a smirk inadvertently appeared on my face. "Sorry, I didn't quite get what you were trying to say." Staring at my smirking face, a vein bulged on Kevin's forehead. Trying his best to calm himself down, an awkward smile appeared on his face. "Congratulations." Hum of satisfaction. Nodding my head in satisfaction, I could not help but slowly caress the purple orb in my hand. Did my E+ rank luck finally work? Or was this due to Kevin's luck? Either way, placing the orb in my dimensional space, I merrily walked towards the forest. "Let's go." Walking for a further 200 meters, Kevin could not help but ask, "How much longer do we have to walk?" "I think we have pretty much crossed half of the dungeon already." Halting my steps in front of a large area filled with large thick green vines, squatting down and placing my hand on the floor, after a couple of seconds, looking up towards Kevin, I slowly said, "Actually, we are pretty much already here." Here, looking around, Kevin could not help but be confused as all he saw were thick vines and trees everywhere. In fact, the vegetation was so thick here that he could not even see the sun. "I do not see anything." Standing up, cracking my neck, I said, "That is because you cannot see it yet." Sound of cutting. Sound of cutting. Unsheathing my sword, I then proceeded to hack towards the large vines. Like that, for the next 5 minutes, I continuously cut down the large vines in front of me. Soon after, a large rumbling sound started becoming discernible by both me and Kevin as the ground below us shook slightly. Looking up ahead, and seeing a small light appear from the gaps of the vines, a smile appeared on my face. "All right." Sound of cutting. Slashing one more time, the scenery before me and Kevin changed one more time as a large waterfall appeared before us. Rumbling sound. "Is that a waterfall?" "Yup." Simultaneously halting our footsteps, Kevin and I watched as an enormous waterfall appeared before us. Surrounded by vines, a pocket-like space that contained a large pond and a waterfall appeared before us. Looking up, we could finally once again see the sun shining down on the land. Sound of water splashing. Sound of water splashing. As the water fell and crashed against the hard rocks on the ground, a small rainbow appeared in the area. It was a truly mesmerizing sight. Snapping out of his daze, Kevin looked around and asked, "What do we do now?" Glancing at Kevin, taking off my shirt and pants, without hesitation, I jumped into the small pond below the waterfall. What else aside from swimming? Sound of splashing. Soon after I said those words, diving deep into the water, I felt my skin sting due to the cold sensation of the water brushing against my skin. Gritting my teeth and remaining underwater, I waited for Kevin to dive as well. Sound of splashing. Not a minute after, Kevin's figure appeared next to me beneath the water. Using my hand to signal him to follow me, using breaststroke, I swam towards the deeper end of the water. As I swam, appearing in my view was a small black tunnel. Glancing at Kevin behind me, and making sure he was following me, I pointed towards the tunnel and swam in it. Looking at the tunnel, Kevin nodded his head and proceeded to follow me. Sound of splashing. Sound of splashing. Inside of a dark cave, the tranquil pond that did not ripple for years, suddenly rippled as shortly after 2 large heads appeared from beneath the water. Gasping for air. Gasping for air. Appearing from beneath the water, I along with Kevin, heavily gulped for air as we floated in the water. Ellie, let's get out, it's a bit too cold. As my teeth chattered, using breaststroke, I moved towards the edge of the pond and quickly got out of the water. Getting out of the water, I could not help but shiver due to the cold. Although I was somehow more resistant to the cold, it still did not prevent me from getting cold. Shortly after, taking out a towel from my dimensional space, I dried my body and put on my clothes. After making sure I had all my clothes on, turning towards Kevin, who was also dressed up, I nodded towards him and moved deeper into the cave. All right, follow me, we are close. Okay. Drying his hair with a towel, Kevin nodded his head and followed me into a dark path inside of the cave. As we were walking deeper into the cave, 5 minutes in, a strong residual magical energy could be felt in the air. The closer we walked, the more stifling the atmosphere became. Magical vibration. Magical vibration. Opening his eyes wide, feeling the intense magical energy, Kevin looked at me, to which I nodded back. Yes, we are here. Thereafter, turning right of the passageway, a large purple gate appeared before us. However, contrary to a regular gate, this one had evident signs of human tampering, as thick black pillars appeared on its sides along with some tall statues of what seemed to be gargoyles. Stopping before the large gate, I rubbed my hand together and said, "Welp, this is as far as I can go." Nodding his head slowly, without looking away from the gate, Kevin opened his mouth and quietly asked, "Is this where I can find the sword art?" Nodding my head, I made sure to remind him of a few things that I had previously told him on our way here. Yeah, make sure you follow the instructions that I told you on the way to the dungeon. Only look for a golden book at the center of the palace, and do not go anywhere else, as I cannot control. Staring at the gate in a daze, most of my words went from one ear to the other. Noticing this, I sighed and just stopped talking. I am going. Seeing that I was done talking, Kevin took a step towards the gate. Bye. Helplessly smiling, I waved at him. However, just as Kevin was about to enter, recalling something, Kevin turned around and looked at me straight into my eyes. Seriously nodding his head, he solemnly said, "Thank you, if I really get the sword art, I will keep the end of my deal." Smiling without responding, I watched as Kevin subsequently entered the portal. Portal sound. Yawn. Watching Kevin's figure disappear into the portal, I lazily yawned and leaned against one of the statues next to the portal. This might take a bit. To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update as soon as possible. See you then.